All right, good evening, everyone. Go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:03. Just for all the new folks, this is the District Advisory Board meeting. This is a meeting for the District Advisory Board that represents the community. I tend to not talk at these, but our chair is feeling under the weather right now, so I am running this meeting. I will answer questions if I am asked, but a lot of this is to gather community feedback on the items before us today and to hear reports from staff into, I don't vote. So if you see the District Advisory Board voting on things and me just being quiet, that's because I don't vote at these meetings. Again, this is the District Advisory Board's meeting. All of these folks represent different parts of the district. So with that, do we have a motion to approve the agenda for today?
Motion to approve.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of said motion, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Have you all had an opportunity to review the minutes of December 4th? And if so, would entertain a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve.
Motion has been made and seconded, flip-flopping this time. All right, all those in favor of said motion to approve the minutes, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We will start today's meeting with staff reports and jump to fire.
That's Kathy with fire.
No, that's not.
Okay, then I don't think we have anyone from fire here today. They did include a written report in your down.
Okay. Encourage everybody to check out the written report. We will then jump to police. Stark, I see you on.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Metcalf.
Officer Metcalf, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, you can hear us. We can't hear you. Let me see if I can troubleshoot this. All right, can you say something, Officer Metcalf?
Can you guys hear me?
He needs to unmute.
Muted? No. He is unmuted. Can you try now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Something's going on with our speakers in here, but
It's always technology. We can hear you.
Okay. All right. Well, for those who don't know me, I'm Officer Jared Metcalf. I'm a community policing officer at Patrol East. So a few updates we have for you guys. My team continues to work on theft reduction assignments where we work with local businesses. A lot of those businesses have been in Bradley Fair. So we've been doing special assignments where we work with their loss prevention. And the people that we've been arresting have been typically repeat shoplifters who have felony convictions for shoplifting. So it's usually our major players that we're actually arresting. We have a new Patrol East station that is nearing completion. We hope to move in sometime around May, and that will be near Lincoln and Edgemoor behind Curtis Middle School. If you have seen the pictures or blueprints, the place looks absolutely amazing. It's way bigger than anything else we've ever had. It'll have a weight room. It'll have secure parking for officers, way more office space, conference rooms, everything. It looks fantastic. So we're very excited about that. We have 2 recruits that just graduated from the academy that came to Patrol East. I believe that class was 19 recruits total. So you're going to see some new officers out, but only 2 of those came to Patrol East. Shortly after that, there was another recruit class that started, and I believe they have 35 recruits in that class. So about 24 weeks from now, they will be graduating and coming out to patrol. And then my final thing is, as part of a community engagement plan, we are going to be starting a Patrol East Facebook page. I know the department has a main Facebook page, and a long time ago we had Facebook pages for each bureau, but we're going to be starting those again. So hopefully sometime here in the next few weeks, you'll see a Patrol East Facebook page. And that will be run by myself during the day, and one of our CRT officers, Emily Hoover, will be running it at the nighttime. So you're going to see daytime and nighttime stuff. You guys have any questions for me?
Any questions for WPD? Got one question.
Hey, Officer Metcalf, the community engagement page, like, have you sought feedback from the community on what they want to see on that? And if
I
not,
believe.
would you?
Sorry, what'd you say there?
Well, and if not, if you haven't, then I would encourage you to.
I'm sure we will. We'll you know, that might be one of our first posts actually, is asking people what they want to see. It'll largely mirror what you see on the main Facebook page, but it'll be more bureau specific. So if you live within Patrol East, we'll cover things like traffic closures, road closures, major accidents, good arrests, good work by our officers, upcoming events, just that sort of stuff.
All right. I have another question. I understand, and I haven't been able to find it, that there's, with the updated Facebook page for the police department, there's like crime stats. And I don't know,
Yes.
like, can you tell us like how we can find that information, and does it break it down by community or neighborhood or address?
Yeah, there's a website. I believe I can look it up for you real quick. I think it's Community Crime Map. I'll look it up for you. Yeah, communitycrimemap.com. And when you go to that website, you can filter by what types of crimes you want to see. And you can also go down and look at it like certain addresses and zoom into specific areas. And then you set your time frame and you can see crime data that way.
Thank you.
communitycrimemap.com.
All right, any other questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Next item is Public Works and Utilities. Thank you for being here. Councilmember.
Mike Armour, Engineering, on behalf of Public Works and Utilities, just kind of give a brief overview of some projects in District 1 or major projects that might be of interest to the DAP. The 2024 OP3 or Outsourced Pavement Preservation Program is getting underway, so you'll start to see some activity in neighborhoods this year for that program. For the Brewer Community Center, FEMA completed their work, and it is going to be removed from the floodplain. They propose to advertise that for bids in March and estimate that construction might start summer, June-ish. Bleckley Drainage, they had done some more evaluation on some modeling. They're going to be taking those results and looking at what the best option might be for those based on that drainage study. Edgemore Plaza, that was presented to DAB in November. It bid February 9th. Looking to start construction here in the next month or so, or coming months, and complete that this 15th Street Bridge at the Drainage Canal. Consultant MKC is developing some concepts, and they will be here to present to DAB next month on those concepts. St. Francis and Commerce, Waterman to Kellogg. That project is in the utility relocation phase, and right-of-way acquisition is already underway and progressing. Downtown Streets, which the scope of that project is to convert the north-south remaining one-way streets, which are or the majority of them, Main, Market, Topeka, and Emporia, the two-way from Kellogg to Murdoch, and then convert English, which is east-west, the two-way from Main to Emporia. Traffic signal equipment, which has a long lead time. We did an advanced procurement of that so we could keep the project moving along. That was bid in January 23rd, just a few weeks. The multimodal facility, final comments received from MABCD. The consultant Trans Systems are addressing those comments, and we'll be completing the permitting process shortly thereafter. this spring. Third Street program, 15th Street from Wabash, Washington, there's been, I know, some delays on that one. I've been involved a little bit on that, talking with the railroads. So, they've set a railroad tracks to go right down that street, so that's proves to be a little more challenging. It's possibility that those tracks might be able to be removed, but I'm working with the BNSF to see if that can get a little traction. Patton Drive, 16th Street, also. K96 from I-135 to 21st Street, that's to expand that freeway to 6 lanes. That is, the next open house is in April 11th. I don't know location. I know last open house was February of 23. It was done out at Nyhard. So Mike just looked for some details for that. Any questions about any of those?
Questions for Mike? None, any from the community? All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
We can eat. All right, next up, some exciting news is coming from Wichita Public Library. Many of you have asked lots of questions. We have answers now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Parker Daniel. I'm the Community Services Librarian from the Wichita Public Library's Maya Angelou Northeast Branch, and here are some updates. From February the 1st to February the 29th, the library, in collaboration with KWCH, is going to host the Celebrating Wichita's Black History series. Programs will run every Thursday from 12:30 to 1:30 p.m. And further information can be found on our website at wichitalibrary.org/events. And they can also be found on the Evolve catalogs. As of February the 3rd, we're expanding our hours to Tuesday through Thursday from 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And then Friday and Saturday will remain from 1 to 6. And then finally, the big week starts on the 16th of March from 2 to 4. This year, we're reading There by Tommy Orange. This tracks the journey of 12 Native American individuals as they're preparing for a big co-op. And that's all I have. Did you have any questions?
Any questions?
I'm just wondering on this celebrating Black History, that is happening in the very middle of the day on Thursdays. Well, I'm doing taxes here for free on Thursdays. Is there any chance of having that happen in the evenings, especially where folks might want to take their kids, you know?
I'm not sure.
Midweek,
Back to you.
midweek, just right in the middle of the day is, it's a shame that program couldn't be spread out. Maybe.
Throughout the year even.
Mhm. Okay.
On that topic, was the first one very well attended? I intended to go and I had a conflict.
I'm not sure. I will say that they're all hosted by leaders in their respective fields and community. Any other questions?
What will it take to get even more? I know we picked up 4 hours a week, right?
Yes.
What would it take to get another 4 hours a week?
Increased visitors, increased attendance at library programs, increased traffic through the library doors.
And one of the problems there is that catch-22. If you need to be open even more in the evenings to get that traffic. So it's kind of hard for the community there. to
I
make
kind of
that.
see my role as the community services librarian as being instrumental in that, because I'll be doing partnerships throughout the community and spreading the word about the library, and we can be a bigger resource for organizations in the district.
And I think I speak for several of us here when I say, if there's something as individuals we can do to help you, to support you in building that library up, I think all of us are, We're here to help.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for being here. All right, we will jump to Park and Rec.
They provided a written report, which is at the bottom of your agenda. It didn't get in the stapled agenda packet, but it was the loose page underneath your agenda packet.
All right. Want to encourage everybody to look at that. Exciting news. You heard it from Public Works, but the work over at Edgemore is going to be awesome when that gets done in the plaza. And again, now FEMA has done what I was hoping for, but it's still going to take a long time to get going on that. But Park and Recs is doing some cool things, and pretty soon you'll see some cool stuff over at Lynette Woodard Center when that gets done. So definitely check out the written report. And I believe for everyone else, this is all posted online as well. So moving along in the agenda, we'll jump into the board agenda updates, issues, and reports. Start to my left this time, Katie.
Let's see, I am sitting on the College Hill Neighborhood Planning Committee. We've had a couple of meetings so far, just with some community members and some staffers, just trying to work up a neighborhood plan and perhaps a protective overlay for the neighborhood. So be on the lookout too. You know, College Hill is a part of everybody's community, not just the people who live there or who have businesses there. So there will be some opportunities in the coming months to provide feedback about the neighborhood and the design and parking and what you would like the neighborhood to look like and how you use it, things like that. So surveys, open houses, things like that should be coming out in the coming months. So I encourage you to get involved.
Awesome.
Oh, and the website for the project is just wichita.gov/College Hill.
I don't have any immediate updates, but future thinking, April 14th, Open Streets ICT at WSU will happen again along 17th Street. So we're excited about that. Share with your neighbors. You can volunteer, you can be a vendor if you've had a business. And if you are a business along the route, you have free registration.
And if you are riding a bike, make sure you start doing leg press now.
Yeah. That is good.
Spoiler.
I'm on the Citizens Review Board. It's a Police Department Oversight Board that meets once a month. And I would just encourage as much attendance. We meet the fourth Thursday of each month at 4 o'clock at City Hall in the main floor conference room. We don't have many citizens attending. We are open to citizen participation for the entire meeting with the exception of an executive session where we review some PSB incidents. But I would love to see more community engagement. Yeah. Oh, the place and time? Yeah, fourth Thursday each month. It starts at 4, it goes through 6. City Hall. And then your parking, you're gonna have your parking validated, all right? Yeah, in the main floor conference room.
No, I knew that.
Thank you.
Well, yes, if you ask for it from the folks sitting there, they will validate your parking. So we encourage participation. We're also, the Citizens Review Board, we're also, the city has contracted with WSU so that we can develop a plan, a strategic plan. We haven't really had that, so that's underway. But it's set up for community engagement, and we would just like to see more people.
Thank you for your contribution to the city. Abby.
In addition to this, I also sit on the library board. And I am involved with Proud of Wichita, which is the Wichita Area LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce. It is still more new than not, but we do have a growing membership. I am a member as well because I run a small business. So if you are interested in being part of the LGBT Chamber of Commerce or are looking for local businesses that you could support that are members of that organization, you can learn more at proudofwichita.org.
Proud or pride?
Proud,
Proud.
PROUD.org.
I just think everyone should come to the District One breakfast the first Saturday of the month. I think it's the best thing ever. You should bring a friend. I love it.
We have pancakes.
I learn something every month.
Equity Initiative is a youth development organization here in Wichita, Kansas. We're off of Waterman Street, Hydraulic and Waterman. We recently opened up tutoring for elementary youth. So before we were only serving middle school and high schoolers, but we noticed that there was a need for elementary youth. So we started that in December. So if you know any elementary youth who might need support in reading, math, please, you can visit our website, equityinitiativeks.com, sign them up, and we'll get started with them. But it is open to middle school, elementary, and high school youth.
Justin.
Hi, I don't actually have a resource just for our neighborhood, but I previously sat on a executive committee for the Sedgwick County Developmental Disabilities Organization, and they host a community council meeting every quarter. Lunch is included, but you can get on and sign up for that in RSVP. And they put on presentations, how to serve somebody with a disability, how to access resources, how to locate providers to support you or your loved one. Just amazing work out there. The location changes, but you can access it on the SCDDO website. And please be sure to RSVP because lunch is included. It's actually pretty decent. So, and it's about 2 hours long. It's on Fridays, once a quarter from like 11 to 1, but really good information. So just wanted to share that resource.
Thank you. Mary Beth.
I'm gonna beat this drum one more time. The city of Wichita has provided property tax relief. So anyone who is already getting Kansas homestead, if this year's tax return allows you to get $60 or more on your homestead, then the city of Wichita is putting something in there too. And I know it's like 25% or something more.
Yeah, so right now with the homestead, you qualify for 75% tax rebate and the city will match the other 25. And that was an initiative by Mayor Whipple. It's important to note that's only funded for 1 year right now.
So use it. Quick, use it this year. And we do taxes here at Atwater on Tuesdays and Thursdays, only during the day, 9 to get out of here. We try to get out of here about 5 o'clock, definitely before they want to close the office. But again, you need to make an appointment to get your taxes done. But you'll need your taxes done before you can apply for this city money as well. But you can call the front desk out here and they can make your appointment to get your taxes done, no charge.
I know we're all interested in like what schools are gonna be closed. My understanding is that the school board meeting is this coming Monday, 6 p.m. North High. They're gonna go over the budget. And hopefully we'll all know something about what schools they're actually gonna close. Cause you know, it affects not just our district, but the entire city of Wichita. So I encourage everybody to tune in.
Can I add one thing? Their survey closes the 6th, so they want to hear from the public, and they have a survey out on the.
All righty. That was updates from the board. We will move on to the public agenda.
Brand,
Yes.
Chelsea, what website is that?
It's on you go to sedgwickcounty.org and then you click the department for the SCDDO.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear
Yeah.
that.
And then it's called
Thank
the
you.
Community Council.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, item 7, there are no scheduled agenda items. We'll jump to item 8. Are there any off agenda items that are not on our agenda that anyone is here to talk to us about? Ms. Jane,
And I
come
could
over
stay
here
here.
to the podium so the folks online can see.
So my name is Jane Burns and I live in this district. And I have been applauding the fact that there are 76 street sweepers. But I'm asking when my street will be swept. Currently on the website, it says August. Last year, it was 11 months between sweepings. So I'm wondering if any of those snow plows with their cute names can be, reworked to streets, to sweep streets. Is that too cheeky to ask?
Well, I wrote it down.
That's a start. Thank you.
But you did share some stuff with us at the breakfast about those sweepers.
Yep, I'll get to that in my updates. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll jump to my updates. I'll try to be brief. I know we have a nice detailed topic to talk about. Before I start, I do want to recognize, I probably should have did this first. Ms. Twyla is a new district advisory board member. Chelsea is a new district advisory board member. And I think that's it so far. Everyone else has been here for a while, so this is their first meeting. Hopefully it won't go to midnight. I warned everybody it could potentially happen. But want to welcome them. I have some more reappointments to do. Well, I have reappointments to do tomorrow. Some of you I will talk to because I've sent emails. Haven't heard if you'd like to stay. I will jump to, out of order, the street sweeping. I said this at the Rockwood neighborhood. And the pandemic in 2020, that was one of the budget cuts. We were sweeping streets 2 to 4 times a year. And as we were cutting, we cut a lot of stuff. That was one of them. And we haven't heard a lot of push to get that back. And so when I brought that up at Rockwood, a lot of people said they wanted it back and they wanted specific times of the year. So Jane, I appreciate that. And then I want to encourage everyone. We have one, the new mayor is pushing for 4 evening meetings, but one really important one is August 8th at 6 o'clock. That is our evening meeting on the budget. That is a meeting that if you have concerns or ideas, if you want to see funding shifted, that's a meeting you should be at. That meeting typically starts with the credits and a nice video and the music. And then it goes into a pledge of allegiance and prayer, and then a budget, real quick presentation, and we want to hear from people. The people who show up, we tend to respond to pretty quickly. Last year was a real push to get some extra support for Cowtown. Ultimately, the council supported Cowtown a little bit more. So if there are things like street sweeping or any other initiatives that you would like to see modified, you can come to every council meeting where we talk about the budget. But that evening meeting, the only item tends to be the budget. So I want to encourage you to come to that meeting, especially about street sweeping. Aside from that, I just realized we didn't have that in January, so I didn't bring my really long detailed notes. But just to give you a real quick, for those who don't know, we do have a new mayor, Mayor Lily Wu. She was sworn in on January 8th. We also have 2 new council members, Councilmember Glasscock of District 4, Councilmember Johnston of District 5, also sworn in on January 8th, and Councilmember Tuttle was reelected, and she represents District 2. We also have a new vice mayor. It rotates every year, so we thank former vice mayor, now Hoheisel, for his year of service. And we, as a council, appoint the vice mayor. We appointed Councilmember Ballard to be vice mayor for this year, represent District 6. It's awesome that every district gets an opportunity to have a vice mayor. I had the honor of being vice mayor in 2021. You don't get extra pay, but you do get extra work. So that's always fun, but we did do that. One of the things that has happened, we'll talk about tonight, so I won't go too long on that. The last council had approved a change in campaign finance. The new council is recommending a different proposal, which you'll hear next. That's happened. And then the one thing that I think everybody has seen and what's going on. A group of people decided, they wanted to take a statue from, McAdams, the Jackie Robinson statue from the Jackie Robinson Pavilion. It was a gut punch to all of us that love to see the investment and the impact that, League 42 has had on young folks, but also the transformation of the park. One of my things that, I've been very specific about is investing in our community, so I was not happy about that either. But in tragedy, we have seen so much unity. People of all walks of life are unified and not only hoping we find who did it, but also supporting League 42. League 42 has received support from Major League Baseball, as well as thousands of people from around the country supporting the GoFundMe. Enough money has been raised that that statue will be put back up. Unfortunately, it looks like it may take 6 months for that to happen, but we will have a celebration when it does happen. The additional funds that they are raising will go into some upgrades of facilities. They're looking at some new turf fields and especially the lighting there, as well as some security upgrades. I've been very specific working with Parks about making sure we block that area so vehicles cannot get up there no matter what. Hopefully no one tries it again. But WPD has been working pretty hard. They've got some good leads. I'm hoping for some news this week or next week. There's been, I think, over 100 interviews. I even got some anonymous tips and gave it to them. So I think they are really close. But again, it's unfortunate that that happened. But I think some good can come from it. We're all unified in making sure that goes back up and we celebrate it being there. That statue was more than a statue. It's a sign of hope and everything that Jackie Robinson achieved and inspired with the young folks. So we are really close on that. And we've been working really close together throughout all our departments to make sure we're all on the same page. That's why I've been at every discovery and finding that statue burned in the way that it was. You know, it's not a good day, but we knew then we just needed to work to get a new statue. So WPD's been working tirelessly on that, and I'm glad to see that they've been making some progress. Aside from that, we'll have a long council meeting tomorrow. Lots of items. Those of you who are interested in the restoration of the bathhouses of the water playgrounds and pools, that item is tomorrow. So there's some additional money there. So the McAfee bathhouse will definitely look better than it has. I believe Edgemore as well for the water playground. I don't remember everything I gave in January because I forgot we didn't have DAB in January. But happy to answer any questions about what I said or any questions you might have in general. Start with DAB.
So, the FOP contract is up for renewal this year.
Mhm.
Is there a prayer of a chance of having community input in that and a little more, or maybe I should ask it differently, what can we do, you know, as a community to try to get community input and transparency of the negotiation process with that contract?
So all of our union negotiations happen with union representatives, city management staff, HR, and that tends to be only those folks. I think for anyone who wants to have input on it, it's good to come to meetings like this or council meetings and just continue to speak about it, whether it's on the public agenda or a related agenda item, just to make sure that the expectations are known of community. And in that case, again, everybody will always hear that FOP, HR, city management, electeds. But we will not, as electeds, be involved in that process. That always happens at the staff level. So the more vocal I think people are about their expectations. Any other questions, comment? Any from the public?
Do you know whether the College Hill Pool Bathhouse is in that funding you mentioned?
I don't remember that offhand, because I've only had a conversation about McAfee and Edgemore. But I can look to see. That'll be a part of the presentation tomorrow. So by the time I talk to you all, the presentation would have happened. But if not, I'll look into that and see when that might happen. Anything else? That's like the best I've ever done. All right,
We didn't get the time on that budget meeting on August the 8th,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
The mayor has proposed quarterly evening meetings centered around our quarterly budget reports. So we will start that and see. To me, that was also the most important. We can have an evening meeting like tomorrow, but it always makes sense as us being responsible for taxpayer dollars, have an evening meeting around a report out on how we're doing and what we're doing. That way people can hold us accountable in those ways.
When will that start?
That should start in March, which will be interesting because we are not having a council meeting the second week of March, and this would be the third week of March that we would have the evening meeting. So that may be a longer evening meeting. We'll see. So in March, I guess I could say this now. I think we'll have for NLC. We always go to Washington DC for National League of Cities and Hill visits. One question you will see floating online from some people is, why do we all go to Washington DC? It's a waste of money. One person could go, the mayor, whomever. I will tell you that has paid off for us. I can 20-fold, 100-fold. There aren't many cities that send their whole council. So when we meet with department directors, HUD or Amtrak or the Bureau of Reclamation, and they see the entire city council there, they're impressed. They know that it means something that we all showed up. If you just look at the WIFIA loans that we have on the water treatment plant, that's the biggest investment, I think, in Wichita's history at $500 million. We got that. I think it was our second try. We got it. And it was continuing with our amazing public works staff, working with them, but we all showed up. We're all on the same page. That's saving money. I know folks are not happy with the rates increasing 5% every year. But without that WIFIA loan, you'd be looking at 12 to 17% every year. So it's a savings for everyone to be able to get that. We also got another one for BNR. It pays off when we show up together. So that's why we all go. While it may look fun, because you'll see some fun pictures of us in front of the Capitol Hill and all of that, we're all walking probably 8 miles a day, all around the Capitol, having meetings. If you don't wear walking shoes, and I was not smart my first couple of years, feet hurt, but again, it's worth it. We get a lot of steps in out there. We have some really productive meetings. All of our federal delegation is on the same page, our senators and congressmen. So that's been a real benefit for Wichita. And I'm glad this new council is keeping up that same thing. We're all going next month. So I'll have a report out in April for how that went, but you'll see the pictures. So outside of the fun pictures you see with us smiling and walking around, and the smart ones of us who have on walking shoes, which I think last year was just Brian and Maggie. Yeah, you'll see those. Anything else?
Did you learn anything more about the community trees being planted?
I don't have that answer yet because I had 9 people email me today concerned about those. So me and Gary Ferris were only talking about those. He sent a list at some point, which I couldn't find. It might be online, but I will get that answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Once, twice. All right. We will stop there with my updates and move on to new business. We have Mr. Nate here to talk about campaign, city ordinance regarding local campaign contributions.
My name's Nate Johnson. I'm an assistant city attorney with the city of Wichita. I met a few of the last time, but nice to meet a few folks that are new to the DAP as well. We're going to be talking about campaign finance regulations at the city level tonight. There's been a lot of discussion of that at the last few council meetings, and now some requests for evaluation and input from the district advisory boards. some background on this, the real specific issue is an amendment to our campaign finance ordinance, and the city basically follows state law, which I'll go through a little bit in a minute with a few slight variations. The issue we're considering now really is whether kind of A or B here. So the A is what we currently have and what was passed in early January, whether LLCs, limited liability companies, and corporations should be prohibited from making contributions in city elections. I'm going to define some of these terms in just a second too. Or B, the alternative, which was the motion and is being considered more or less before the council now, to repeal that to allow those corporations and LLCs to make contributions in city elections, subject to some disclosure requirements of responsible officers or managing members. On January 16th, that's the date that City Council voted to send this issue to the DAB for evaluation and input. And to help with that process, my presentation is going to look at a few different things, define some key terms like I previewed already, briefly describe some federal constitutional and state rules that kind of provide a framework for what we're trying to do here, give some history on city regulation of campaign finance, a few steps that got us to this point, and break down again the specific issue before the council and the DABs. If you got questions throughout, please just let me know. And I do have to kind of go to DAB 5 after this, so I'm going to try to answer as many questions I have. I'm not the important person to present to council, so I think you can probably share as much of your evaluation and input after that. But please ask questions as we go. I'll try my best to answer. So in the world of campaign finance, it's important to distinguish between contributions and expenditures. We're focused on contributions here, and contributions are donations made directly to or authorized by a candidate's campaign. And what we're really talking about are the first part of that sentence, donations made directly to a campaign from a corporation or LLC. Expenditures include things like indirect support related to an issue or the campaign, but not, or maybe some other expenditures that are not authorized or coordinated by a candidate's campaign, even if it's about that campaign, maybe in support of it. Again, the issue here is contributions, not expenditures. And that's important under federal constitutional principles. Yeah.
If you would go back on, I know we're not talking about expenditures, but can you give me an example of an expenditure, indirect support? I mean, I don't.
Most money, most money that is spent on an election probably is an expenditure for the most part generally. That's money that's in support of a campaign or an issue, but not given directly to the campaign.
So I could pay for somebody's flyers. And that would be an expenditure?
As long as it's not coordinated with their campaign. And some flyers are, some aren't. So I just want to provide that caveat, but.
I don't want to belabor it since that's
Oh,
what
no,
we're talking about.
no,
I
for
still
sure.
don't understand it.
So
Okay.
expenditures are generally money that's spent for a candidate, but it's not given directly to the
Okay.
candidate.
Alright.
And really, I think the way maybe to think, and that's why I try to focus a bit more on the contribution side, because what we're focused on and what we can play a bit more with under federal constitutional rules are when money is directly given to a candidate or their campaign. And that's kind of the contribution level we're focusing on.
Would a nonpartisan voter drive or a nonpartisan event by any person be considered an expenditure?
Well, again, a field of this, but probably not. I mean, sometimes there are issues that might be up for election, for example, and it could be related to that, but like a voter drive is a different kind of thing. This would be money that you would kind of like have to report under campaign finance rules is maybe another way to think of it too. Things that are directly meant to influence a specific election. Maybe again, a different way. So we follow state campaign finance law, not federal law. City elections, part of the whole state campaign finance scheme, but state law also follows federal constitutional rules. And a big one that comes up a lot of times is kind of what happened in Citizens United, what applies here, what does that mean? So I did want to at least touch on that and what happened in that case and why we draw some distinction between expenditures and contributions. In Citizens United, the Supreme Court used the First Amendment to strike down certain corporate expenditure limits at the federal level. And they said kind of the idea here is expenditures are a little bit more at the core of free speech because you're just speaking publicly, not giving directly to maybe a candidate. You're giving it more to the public. So there has been for a long time, though, a federal prohibition on corporate contributions to candidates, and that was left in place. It wasn't clear at the time that Citizens United decided whether the court was going to continue and maybe strike down the ban on corporate contributions or stop at expenditures. And it seemed since then that it's kind of stopped at expenditures, and there can be more rules about corporate contributions. So for us, Citizens United probably doesn't apply to the specific thing that we're considering here, since we're talking about a prohibition or some disclosure requirements on contributions rather than expenditures. Like I said, we're subject to the State Campaign Finance Act, and there is a cap on contributions there. It's not that you can't have any contribution rules, but it has to be kind of balanced with constitutional concerns. You can make $500 donation or contribution for a primary, $500 in the general election and state and local elections. The definition of person includes corporations and LLCs, a few other kind of business or organizational entities, as well as natural persons, which means that if you own a business, you can give up to $500 under your name as well as the business, which is kind of the issue that we're considering, I think, before council. So business entities also are not required to disclose anything about their structure, who the responsible or managing officers are when they make that contribution. It just has to list the name of the LLC or the corporation. And state campaign finance law doesn't require campaigns to collect that information, would maybe be another way to get at it. So there is not any kind of real disclosure requirement at the state level or currently at the city level for LLCs and corporations that give directly to candidates in city elections.
I have a question.
Yep.
So in this circumstance, how do they know that it's an actual LLC or corporation? Is there any sort of like filing?
Oh, my apologies. I look at this like, so I also do city permitting, so I look at like the state business registry website all the time. My apologies. That exists. You can look up every corporation or LLC or business entity that is registered or has ever registered with the state of Kansas to figure out whether they're in good standing or not with the state. And that actually, they just revamped the website, actually. I don't know why I'm giving a pitch on this now, but all of that information is available. But you don't always have to get, an LLC is not required to maybe disclose a responsible officer or a managing member like they would be under the proposal before council. So the idea here is to maybe require a little bit more information of LLCs or corporations than the state otherwise requires when a political contribution is made by that company.
But they would have to be somewhere registered, like you couldn't just like make up a LLC, or business and donate like multiple times under that.
So yes,
make up a name and then do a donation, make up another name, do a donation.
For sure. And so I think kind of the idea is maybe there is a concern that you can do that, but you always have to do that with an actual company.
Okay.
One that's registered. State campaign finance law defines a person, it says a corporation. So when state law uses the word corporation, then we just refer to the corporation section or whatever.
Okay.
And that's where we draw that from. So it has to at least meet those requirements.
And so just to plug in, they go through a system process. These are all the businesses or corporations. And
Registered to do business in Kansas, there is a searchable list online of all of those. Yeah.
well, I know there's a searchable list, but are they like vetted to ensure that, these are actual businesses that have contributed, are in good standing?
So those are two different questions, maybe. The state state secretary of state makes sure that every corporation or business entity is registered to do business appropriately. You have to file annual reports, submit some information, and do that sort of thing yearly. Now, contributions though, there's the state level of managing and evaluating campaign finance, more or less. There's like the page online that you can look at everybody's contributions that are submitted under the Campaign Finance Act. But if you get money from a corporation, say you're a candidate right under state law, you only have to list that the corporation gave you money. You don't have to provide any additional information, and that's kind of the place that we're in. And maybe what we'll play with a little bit here.
So for clarity on that, they would know because the check's gonna come from my LLC, right? I mean, usually any corporation or company is gonna have their own corporate checking account or something, and so then that, or maybe not.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's just, I don't mean to speak too much,
Yeah.
it's like a wide variety, but yeah.
Okay, and then, and I don't know if you would know this, but are these contributions, are they tax deductible, the companies, or, I think typically, campaign contributions are not tax person?
I don't
Okay,
believe
okay,
so, but
okay,
yeah,
all right.
not super sure, but yeah, sorry. But it is, these are generally companies that are registered to do business. And I think that's kind of the evaluation when you submit your campaign finance reports too. Because otherwise it would count as from a person. So that person might be kind of running into some issues. So that's kind of the so we've kind of got a few more stringent rules at the state or at the city level as well. But the only real one that we've got currently, beyond the whole consideration here, is that there are campaign finance reports that are filed for city elections with the city clerk. So a lot of that information might be submitted at the state level potentially as well, but that information is filed with us. You can submit an Open Records Act request. We use that in some different ways, as you'll see in a little bit, as maybe about information about LLCs or corporations as well. For a long time, actually, the city have prohibited contributions by corporations and a whole host of other entities, including nonprofit groups, unions, other business entities, things like that, from making contributions to candidates in city elections. That was changed in December 2015. A lot of that too was kind of trying to align with state law, as a lot of us were trying to figure out sort of like what was going on with Citizens United and how other courts were sort of deciding in the aftermath of that. So we decided to align more with state laws, which just kind of meant corporations, LLCs, that same definition of what a person is, can make a contribution in a city election to a campaign. On January 2nd of this year, the city code was amended to prohibit specifically corporations and LLCs from making contributions to candidates in city elections. And another thing we did was amend the penalties in that to just be consistent with state law. That's a bit more of a criminal law thing. Now it's a misdemeanor, a fine of not more than $2,500 or a year in jail. And that's just kind of what we have to do to align with state law thing, kind of totally separate from the campaign finance question. But this is the current city code, prohibiting corporations and LLCs from making contributions to candidates in city elections. A couple weeks later, January 16th, that's when council was considering that and whether to repeal that recent amendment and instead put in place a disclosure requirement for LLCs and corporations, where they would have to disclose a managing partner or responsible officer when making contributions in city elections. That information wouldn't need to be filed with the state or anything, but it would have to be part of the report that is sent to the city clerk as part of that other rule that the city has. So that's kind of the trigger or mechanism that we would use to do that.
I just want to share that a lot of people may not realize the corporation could be registered in the state, but the only name that you can look at on there is the registered agent, and it may be an attorney. And they may be on 50 of them, same guy. And I've gone looking for who is the person behind this corp, and so you can't, it's not always easy to find it. So that's
true, and there are companies that specifically are resident agents, and yeah, I see a lot of the same ones as well doing my permitting licensing work. And the idea would be that you could not list a resident agent as your managing partner or responsible officer. It's someone who is a bit more involved. We have some kind of definitions potentially in mind, but that's part of the consideration here too. So that information has to be listed and included in the report with the city campaign finance reports that are submitted. Oh, I might have hit something that knocked us out of that, but that was really kind of about it on the information I had. And if you just go to that slide would be perfect.
Another question.
And here's like the main issue again. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'll summarize after.
So, just to kind of back up on your point, so can the same person be listed? So like if you're showing up on the applicant, as the corporation, like the main primary person. Or maybe there's like 8 people on one application. For one business, can they be on an application for another business or on the finance for another business or LLC?
So, yeah, you could theoretically get contributions from one corporation and from one LLC that has the same person as the officer or member. But also kind of the idea would be that this person is kind of integral to the company, so it'd be kind of hard practically to have 2 jobs like that.
Okay.
So it's to get someone that is significant enough, and that's why we kind of use that member officer language that has kind of a specific meaning for LLCs and corporations respectively. So it has to be someone that is significant. So I get what you're saying, and I think it is technically possible. There's nothing prohibiting that. But these are supposed to be significant roles in the company, so you couldn't.
But who defines
Probably-
significant role?
And that is kind of the question, I think.
Mhm.
But we do a lot of that with what is a director or officer of a corporation. We do a lot of that with trying to identify corporate information, and again, with licensing and permitting, we do that a lot, honestly. To get an alcohol permit, you gotta provide corporate information about directors and officers and significant shareholders. So this isn't a totally like, it's somewhat kind of a regular information processing thing that the city and other regulatory entities do. It's just not currently required for campaign finance.
Oh, but I can, before I retired, I worked with an organization, we had a bunch of LLCs. And it's not hard to put different people as either the managing partner, and sometimes the managing partner doesn't necessarily even have to be an owner in the LLC. And this stuff is not hard to manipulate. I'll tell you that, it's pretty darn easy. So, yeah, it's easy to do. And so if there were like 10 owners and I had 5 LLCs, I could have like 5 different names, you know, each one would have maybe a different managing partner. So I think knowing who the owners are in the LLCs might also be helpful, but I might be checking that out.
Oh, and no, and that's, I mean, this is kind of how we have it set up. You don't, state law, I don't believe you have to disclose the owner of an LLC necessarily. But part of the conversation here, and I kind of want to make sure that I frame this correctly too. So this is a little bit of or it really is kind of an either or that we're looking at currently before the council. And we can get into specific parts of disclosure requirements and how we want to do that. But that is in contrast to the current code prohibits corporations or LLCs to make contributions to candidates in city election. So it's kind of the disclosure requirement and allow contributions, and however we want to sort of frame that, maybe though it is difficult sometimes to make LLCs and corporations provide you consistent information. That is a trouble with disclosure requirements. But we've got the disclosure requirement side, but allow it, versus kind of the prohibition side that we currently have in the code to prohibit corporation and LLC contributions in city elections. So happy to answer questions, but also make sure I'm framing it properly and I don't meld the 2 ideas together, basically.
So kind of related to what they were talking about, I don't know how prevalent or not it may be, but like she was saying, what if someone owns a company and their accounting arm of their company is under a different LLC, but there isn't necessarily another officer. It's the same, really the same person. It's kind of in charge of all of it. How does that look in this context if that person is the same, but the company is technically, at least on paper, different? Or, and in addition to that, also like putting down the managing partner, what's keeping people from putting Jack the janitor down as the managing partner because he's the next person on the list?
Yeah, so I think under the first option, no matter kind of how you define your corporation or LLC, it's not an allowable contribution. So that is kind of the easier way to deal with that. It is a bit more of trying to come up with an effective definition that captures significant enough people in the corporation or LLC to provide meaningful information to voters or people that are interested in finding out about campaign. And I agree, like, there are a lot of different legal approaches to defining a responsible officer or managing partner, and we'll try to do, like, we'll try to define it as effectively as possible based on what council provides, but that is a very difficult part of the disclosure.
So if they're going to change it, it's going to require a whole lot more work. If they're gonna change it where they are going to allow this, then there's gonna be a lot more work to monitor it.
Oh, potentially, the way that we have it set up currently is not for necessarily the city to enforce it, but for the information to be available for folks to review campaign finance reports.
Maybe essentially unenforceable.
There's not, I'll just say there's not a specific enforcement mechanism that's thought with the information to be provided, and there's not one with our current reporting requirement. But that is, we do provide open records, and that's kind of the idea.
And I feel like, sorry, I feel like for me that is a sticking point as well, because it seems kind of disingenuous to present or propose a situation where, yeah, everybody can see who's giving the money, but none of this actually really matters because no one's enforcing it and who cares? So, yeah, that doesn't sit well with me.
It does give people the opportunity, to take the time to go through and then present, oh, I see something, fishy here, but that does take civic
Resources.
So I have just a clarifying question on timeline.
Yeah.
So the city council has allowed contributions by LLCs and corporations since they've allowed it since 2016 up until the vote in January.
That's
I
correct.
just want to make sure what I'm talking about. Okay.
So we have lived with it in the past. We made a change in January to say we're not gonna let corporations make direct contributions. And now
prior
they're
to 20
considering reversing that.
Yeah, prior to 2015, corporations and LLCs were not allowed to make contributions, and along with a whole host of other groups as well. That whole provision was struck down at the end of 2015, early 2016, so that any person defined by state law, including corporations and LLCs, could make contributions. And then in January of 2024, there was added the prohibition on corporations and LLCs from making contributions. So it is just a specific slice of what there was before, but we have lived with both, I guess. Maybe a way to think of it.
For clarity, and you probably said it and I missed it at the time,
Oh.
but these are only companies that are doing business or registered to do business in Kansas. So if I have a company in Oklahoma, but I live in Kansas, that Oklahoma entity can't or could make a
I
contribution.
don't believe you have to be doing business in the state to make a contribution. You can be registered out of the state.
Okay, so any company anywhere in the country.
That is
or the
true.
world.
And the way that we kind of drafted it before was, there was some conversation about this. We list both domestic and foreign corporations. And that's a bit more of a like foreign in this case means out of state and can include, I guess, international.
Doesn't mean Iran.
Right, I mean, yeah,
I have a
maybe some different corporate laws.
history question.
Yeah.
Do you know who or how it was presented in 2015 to change that? Do you know that history?
A little bit. There was kind of that overarching kind of like, oh, there's Citizens United, we don't know which direction it will go. Around that same time, there was a package of laws passed at the state level, particularly putting all the elections maybe on the same like date, more or less, instead of like spring and fall, moving everything more toward the fall. And as part of that, the city decided to do a couple other things with its election code to be more consistent with state law. And this was one of the things considered and passed as part of it. Yeah, we basically just use the same definitions. State law. I might head to DAB 5 though, otherwise, but yeah, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. And please feel free to.
Were you looking for any type of motion to vote one way or the other?
No, and we're not, I guess, the last slide is really just, yeah, we appreciate evaluation and input. There's not a recommended action or anything. It's really trying to consider the either or. So when we have that
I wanna
some council
voice-
meeting in
I wanna
March,
voice my
we can
concerns.
consider it.
Like, because this is the time to voice our concerns.
This is the-
There are only 7 votes on the council. I feel very strongly that they shouldn't be influenced by companies that can support the average person. I don't know a single person in my neighborhood that can even give $500 personally. And so I just feel very, very strongly that they should not be allowed to take corporate money. That's how I feel.
I would second that simply because I guess I'll just reiterate what I said a few moments ago, is it seems like the option is between, we just don't let corporations and LLCs contribute at all, or we let them contribute as much as they want, as long as they fill the paperwork out correctly. And so we're just going to like, say Dave owns 40 LLCs and he wants to donate to a city council person or a mayor or somebody. And so he can donate 40 different times. And on that, we see that Dave has donated 40 different times, but it doesn't matter. It's still allowable. So like the whole thing seems.
If Dave and 4 people from his
The corporate interest is overriding the people.
Yeah.
And we're more aligned with our neighborhoods and our neighbors.
Yeah, so just a few facts, because this was a great article in the Wichita Eagle. But when because I'm helping with volunteering a lot at the Kansas State House of Representatives. It is recommended to raise $75,000 if you're running for House of Representatives. And that's covering, it's 19,000 people in your district. But when you look at I don't know, I just feel like when you're looking at 7 people that can make such a huge difference, only 7 people with a vote, each of them, for our city, the checks and balance, I just don't think are there.
I think it takes away a lot of the spirit of the city, like our elections at the city level are supposed to be nonpartisan, right? But I think that our city, the way that it's set up, with our DABs, with our various committees, is very citizen driven. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the city of Wichita, and even, from my getting involved or their investment in the community, or even Civic Engagement Academy, various programs and things like that, is that it should be an individual. And so I think that when meeting the spirit of the definition, that an individual is either a human person, right, or a business, right? You can only be really one person, right? But you can be multiple businesses, or you can be multiple LLCs, and you can kind of mask that in a way, right? You can also call friends who own businesses in foreign areas outside of the state of Kansas, and maybe get them to contribute in your way as well. And that just doesn't seem Wichita to me.
I feel like it needs to be door to door, like actually talking with people, and that is not reflected when you out earn. It's a $32,000 for this city council person winning against $8,000 raised to the person who didn't win. It's just such a discrepancy, a financial discrepancy.
I would also say, I think it would be naive to think that money doesn't influence folks. I've seen it on the national level at an organization where I worked. You raise money so you can get in front of a national lawmaker and pay them $2,500 or $25,000, whatever it was, just to have a breakfast with them. They're gonna listen to you and they're gonna want you to fund their breakfast the next time they're up for reelection. And we expected something. So it's so naive to think that money doesn't influence. Even people, I think, with the best intentions could, I don't know, be slightly influenced.
Additionally, I don't remember the name of the study or the organization right off the top of my head, but I can find it again later. I was doing a little bit of research on the effects of corporate donations in elections and in politics, and studies have shown that when corporate money and when large amounts of money and LLCs are involved in politics, it almost always disadvantages already disadvantaged communities. So while some people may couch an argument that letting LLCs and corporations donate to elections also gives that same voice to maybe communities that don't have that voice otherwise, it doesn't work out that way, because if a community is already economically disadvantaged, allowing them to spend limitless amounts of money on an election really kind of, again, is disingenuous, because they've only got a certain amount of money, as opposed to the few deep pockets that show up routinely over and over and over again. So it's not a way of leveling the playing field. It's inherently biased towards the wealthy and the people of means.
I would agree with that. And some of the pushback that I've heard, and I think it was maybe comments at the last council meeting, was that businesses should have a voice in our city election. And I would agree with that. I mean, we want to be an inclusive city with growth and inviting businesses to have a voice. However, what you're saying, Abby, I agree, because then that gives, if I own my business, I can contribute personally, and then I can also contribute with my business. But I've done that just as myself personally, spoken for my business, but now I get additional vote or additional contributions. So the business sector is getting additional sway and say. So then I think that if we want to represent businesses, have the business owner personally contribute.
It levels the playing field also very much.
Yeah.
With the national election right now, like the primaries, I mean, that's all they talk about. I mean, I don't know a lot about campaign finance, but is how much fundraising each candidate is weighing or is earning, right? And they're using that as a predictive factor.
Right.
So yeah, just to kind of back up Abby's point and what you're saying, Michaela.
Take that back.
Any other thoughts from that? Any from the public?
I do have something. As far as campaign funding and contributions, why don't we have a limit set for each position in its entirety, rather than deal with, oh, we can get $8,000 from this person, or we can give 32,000. Why don't we just say $20,000 is the cap and let that be that? $10,000 is the cap, rather than have this issue where the discrepancy is so large.
In total per campaign?
Total per person, per campaign.
Well, per person, state law limits it, so it's 500 for an individual.
As far as for the campaign, for the person running.
Receiver.
It would be tough to do it just because of the other market factors like inflation, like just using my campaign. The first time I did radio was 1,500 for the few slots I had. The next time the same request was like almost 2,000. So if you limit it, what's a realistic number for each candidate? And then candidates who, I mean, I really am not a fan of raising money for myself, but the candidates who won't do the work, then automatically get the same amount of money as you. So I think there's arguments on both sides of that on the actual cap, but that's part of the conversation. That'll be in the record. We can talk about that too. Jane, you had your hand up.
Yes. It was Abraham Lincoln that said, of the people, for the people and by the people. People are different than those legal entities that may have 30 represented contributions or 250 in an election. And I'm not dissing any person, but we just had an election for $100,000 a year job that was $633,000. It's it is like buying an office, isn't it? It's beyond people for sure. I get the District 5 newsletter. I lived over there for so long, and he took a poll. Who do you think should be able to contribute to local political campaigns? The responses were individuals 77.4%, small businesses or LLCs 7.5%, local corporations 7.5%, political action committees 3.8%, and dark money 3.8%. We can't do anything in Wichita, Kansas about the Supreme Court's mushrooming of dark money into elections, but we can call a halt in Wichita, Kansas. We can honor people, the people who have totally different circumstances than any business. The protection of children from schools shootings and rape and stranger danger. Businesses don't have to worry about urban heat islands. They don't have to worry about paying their food bill. They don't have to. Businesses are different than people. And why would we want to have them have such an outsized voice? They have 30 LLCs like apparently somebody did. That's 30 voices. People have one voice. So I would, and I'm going to illustrate that. Businesses are different than people. I was by total happenstance in Topeka today for the vote on single-use plastics in committee. And the deciding, that fourth vote out of those 7 votes, the deciding vote was, yeah, but this, there's all this litter, yes. And there are all those microplastics, yes. And there are islands of plastic in our oceans and gulfs, but businesses would be inconvenienced if they had banned plastic bags. So, well, it's just in the committee. It'll go to the House, but and they will probably vote for unlimited business as well. Different people, the trash plastic trash in my gutter. That's different than them repainting their plastic bags. Where of course plenty of businesses have already figured out. Aldi never had plastic bags. They used those boxes. They passed a plastic ban in Lawrence, and nobody, they shop, they buy, they figure out how to tote it in whatever bag in their hands. Businesses are different than people. Isn't that right? Am I wrong? Who thinks I'm wrong? Sorry.
Thanks, Jane. Anyone else?
Question. So does the current adoption of the ordinance, does it align with the state law, or are we now aligned with state law saying?
You're stricter than state law.
Okay. Just trying to put this together, trying to we can go through that PowerPoint again. And trying to understand, but I agree with what everybody else on the board is saying, is that it should just be a contribution by the person and not by, I'm a business owner and I personally have different objectives in my life versus my business, so I would agree with the current.
I have another question. What would it take to I don't know, get it on a ballot where the citizens in the whole city could vote for it, rather than just the people voting for it who can stand to benefit from it by having the majority? I don't know how that works.
The will of the Wichita City Council and $100,000.
What?
To get it on the ballot?
Because it takes that much for the ballot.
Any type of ballot initiative, I believe, is 100,000.
And, but the city has to pay for it?
That's, yep.
So then it's the 7 people still, so if you have 4 of them, whether. Oh,
Unless you ran you could run a petition.
that's okay.
Run a petition, it's a lot of work. It's, and you have to get signatures, would it be 5% of the last electoral turnout?
But it's been done in other places.
I mean, it happened, with legalizing marijuana. 2015. All right, more public comment?
Dan Rosser, Lansville. In the city's material, I noticed they use and, sometimes they use or, when they're talking about managing partner or responsible party. And there's 2 people, Harry and Sally, 2 people, or 1 person. So the easiest dodge between the managing partner, who's more likely to be a person with substantial financial interest, and the person named as the responsible party, who's more likely to be, as you said, the maintenance engineer, is significant in the way the city's using that language in 2 ways. Is I'd ask you to look for that in the end product.
Okay. I wrote it down.
Thank
you. Anyone else in the public?
Did Celeste do it with the Safe Century 2 petition?
Do what?
Gather a petition.
Yes, there was a petition. She had some signatures on that.
Signatures?
And that's not mandatory. 17.
So the petition would have to be done before March.
No, so by March 5th, there would have to be conversations with the council to encourage them to not vote on this right now and put it to a ballot. The only challenge I think some might say is anybody who may file before that doesn't know all the direction just yet. That's an argument I've heard. I disagree with it. I think that every candidate right now knows they can't take money from a corporation or LLC. So that really wouldn't change unless the public votes differently. But that would have to be something worked out that when this comes to council on March 5th, a majority of us would have to agree to hold off and allow the public to weigh in.
But even if, let's say, the council decides that these corporate contributions are permitted March 5th, the ballot initiative could still be done, and then it would change for future elections. Is that right? I mean, we don't have this March 5th hard deadline, or do we?
You just get into weird spaces with campaigns. So if on March 5th, the council does reverse this and it's a version of what we saw tonight that has some transparency in it, and candidates immediately file and start getting corporate contributions, then this ballot initiative happens. If it's focused on the 25 race, then what do those candidates do? Do they give that money back, which they could? Or is it we allow it one more cycle and that ballot initiative starts in 2027? And again, that would be up to whoever's doing the initiative. Any other comments from the public? All right, we'll bring it back to Dab. Any other final comments from Dab?
Yes, I think transparency should be effective and not just a virtue signal. Thank you.
Got that. So with that, if you know any other folks throughout the city, this will be at other dabs. It's at 2 other ones tonight. There are 3 other dabs. If they have strong feelings either way, we want to encourage them to show up. So if you know other folks who, or yourselves, who want to go to other dabs and share your thoughts, we are taking minutes at each dab about what people think, and then that will come back to council again on March 5th, and we will work through the feedback given on both. When things come out to dab, we often can make it better. So I'm sure staff will be taking note of all the minutes that'll be provided and see what they can do to push this closer to what people are saying.
It's actually being heard at 4 tonight. DAB 6 rescheduled. So DAB 2 hears it next Monday. DAB 3 hears it this Wednesday.
Wow, all right.
6 is hearing it this evening.
I take that back. There are 2 more dabs to hear about. All right, so feedback has been provided. See, well, there's no vote on this, it's feedback. So with that, we will move on to item number 11, zone 2023-00077.
My name is Brad Etherly, a senior planner of the Metropolitan Area Planning Department. Right now, we are discussing zone 2023-00077. For this case, the applicant is requesting a zone change from SF5 single family residence to EF3 two-family residence. It is a 0.15 acre property located at 2935 East Maplewood. Right now, the site is currently undeveloped. The applicants are intending to use the site for a duplex. The only requirement that is changing as far as zoning standards is that for a duplex, you have to have a 6,000 square feet property. And this property does meet that requirement. The property is surrounded on all sides by SF5 with single family dwellings. In 1941, it was platted as part of the Shady Brook addition, and it has no other zoning cases associated with the property. Subject site currently has access to East Maplewood Drive, which is a 2-lane local street with no sidewalks on either side. All municipal services serve the site currently, and Wichita Transit serves the area at the intersection of East Shady Brook Street and North Hillside Street, approximately 1/4 mile walking distance from the subject site. The requested zone change is in conformance with the Community Investments Plan, which recommends the subject site is appropriate for residential uses. So duplex development is an appropriate use for this area. It is also in conformance with the Places for People plan. Plan calls for infill and redevelopment that is contextual to the environment. Staff believes the proposed use is contextual to the environment. It is also in conformance with the Central Northeast Area Plan. Initiative 8.1 of that plan calls to promote new home construction on vacant lots. And, I will ask Maggie if we can go through some of the maps. While we're waiting, I'll go ahead and let you know that we have not received any public comment on this request as of yet. We just get one person who called and had questions, but when their questions were answered this time. And based off of the staff report, we requested the
the request being approved. And those are subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. The recommendation is based off of the board meeting.
Well,
Yeah.
it's up on my computer. I don't know why this is still showing.
Do you think it has to do with the clicker at all?
There we go.
Okay, yeah, if you'll scroll down.
That
To
person
this.
that called, do you know, are they from the neighborhood or are they just passing?
I honestly don't know if they were neighbors or not. There you can see the aerial version, and Matt, you can scroll down the zoning. There, it's surrounded by SF5, but all that yellow is TF3, so there's quite a bit in the area. I don't think that it's an abnormal request to include this this lot. And then if you'll scroll down to the this is the future growth map. You can see that it is residential. Very small. I can't even see it.
Yeah, it's yellow.
Yeah, yeah. And then the pictures, if you'll scroll down. This is looking into the property, and then away from the property, and then north and south, or east and west. It's kind of that. So that's it. I can stand for any questions. I don't know if the applicant is here. Yeah, he's here, so he can also. Questions from Deb?
I have a question. So what's the requirement for parking when it's a duplex? Is it like a super wide driveway for each duplex to have their own
Sure.
driveway, or is it one or?
I believe that it is 1.25, yeah, per dwelling unit.
So it'd be.
And so they'd have to have roughly 2.5 spaces, I think. But that would all be taken care of in the building permit process.
Okay. And then just because I'm totally brand new, is this city owned? Like at the lot, is it city owned or?
No, it's owned by that.
Oh,
Yeah, anytime anybody wants to do any kind of land use,
they've already.
they have to own the property. that they're- Okay,
Yeah, so I don't see any site plans or draft plans for this. Would they be required to follow as if the places for people plan that has X amount of windows and doors and pitches, like that basically
yeah, those are.
that has to have curb appeal?
I believe that those are all recommendations. Those are also things that would go through the building permit stage as well. Any other questions from that?
I have a question for the applicant. Could you share a little bit with us? Are you the applicant?
Well, I'm the agent, the actual
Oh.
account is not here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Before you leave, I have a. So is that the only concession being asked, is that it be changed from a single family to duplex? That's the only concession being asked?
That's what is being asked, is to change the zoning from single family to two family so that they can build a duplex. Duplex is not allowed in the SF5 single family residential district, but it would be allowed in the TF3. The only thing that would apply is if they didn't have enough space on the property that code requires. That requirement is 6,000 square feet. This property does meet that requirement. All of the other zoning district standards such as setbacks and height would remain the same.
That's what I wanted to know. And then is the property gonna be, I'm looking at the homes, it must gonna be like sideways? I mean, as opposed to,
Now, let me see, can you scroll down just a little bit? Scroll up. Yeah, so this is looking from the street of East Maplewood. So basically, I just turned around, that's across the street, and this is here. So you've got space,
that way.
pretty actually long lot. Do you believe that the lot is half of this, what you see? I think that this other side of the street is another lot, so you're seeing two lots, two empty lots here is what I'm trying to say. But,
Or it'll be front facing, not sideways and be.
no. And what you don't really see, if you scroll down, you can maybe see what is a remnant of a driveway.
Oh, right, okay.
So there is a remnant of a driveway there. I don't know if they plan on keeping that or if they're gonna tear that up and replace, but there's plenty of room for the duplex.
I have a further question, and it may go against the golden rule, so please correct me here. But I know I've heard, so is the, typically duplexes are for rental properties, right? And I know there have been issues with out-of-state landlords. So, I mean, is it a requirement? Is the person who's gonna build there, are they out of state? And maybe I should. Not a requirement that they- Okay. So, yeah.
He is local.
Okay.
He does live in state.
And it's his
He lives here
intent-
in the city,
And
yes.
it's the intent that it be a rental property. Oh, so close to WSU.
Yes, yes.
Are there site plans available?
I don't have a site plan. Generally, when we do the permitting with the permitting office, they will require us to put together a site plan.
So I think I read somewhere that this was gonna be kind of an isolated lot that would be zoned on its own and not the whole area rezoned.
Correct.
Just-
Just for this lot, although if you go back to the zoning map, you can kind of see that the neighborhood is starting to change and, yeah, that one right. And that more of these yellow TF3s might be coming into the area, especially considering the proximity to the.
So any of them that had 6,000 square feet could potentially tear down what's there and put in the duplex.
But that was an empty lot.
But would they have to get another, each of those? At this point, it would be an individual change.
Just this one lot.
And there's quite a few when I drove around there. There's an unexpected number of empty lots in that area. That's kind of surprising.
Homes have been bulldozed. Just because I have to say this, I am all for single dwelling homes. Wichita, we still have an issue with first time home buyers being able to get homes. And so I'm just hoping developers would just, think about our city and our people and build some homes that people can afford to live in. But, that's my soapbox.
We've got that in the works.
Love it, love it.
I would entertain a motion to approve with the encouragement to follow the design, not requirements, recommendations.
Okay.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion about the motion?
Who seconded that?
I did.
Abby. All right, with that, all in favor of said motion, please respond by saying aye.
Right.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Next item, 2023-00078. Yes, again, Brad Everly, senior planner for the Metropolitan Area Planning Department. This case is zone 2023-00078. For this case, the applicant is requesting a zone change from TF3 family residence to NF29 multifamily residential. This site is a 0.16 acre lot, is located on the southwest corner of East First Street North and North Poplar Avenue with the address of 2411 East First Street North. I don't know. Aerial. Yeah, there's the aerial of it. You'll see that it's got two parcels. The western parcel is developed with a single family home. And that is proposed to remain. The eastern parcel has been demolished, is vacant, and is proposed to be developed with a duplex. The 29 district allows for 29 units per acre, and based on the size of this property, 4 dwelling units would be allowed. However, they're just asking for the single family house and the duplex. The parking standards of the Unified Zoning Code call for 1.35 parking stalls for efficiency, 1-bedroom dwellings, 1.75 stalls for 2 bedrooms or larger units. The number of dwelling units may be limited by the number of parking spaces the applicant can provide on site. Since the applicant is proposing a single family dwelling and a duplex across 2 parcels, property will be exempt from implementing landscaping and screening in accordance with the Wichita Landscape Ordinance and the Unified Zoning Code respectively. However, should the current or future property owners build multifamily housing or non-residential uses on the subject site, subject to screening and landscaping. While the MF 29 zoning allows a maximum height of 45 feet, since it is adjacent to TF3 zoning, the compatibility height standards limit the proposed development to 35. Maddie, if you can scroll down to the zoning map. Some of the properties that surround it to the north are TF3s, and they are developed with single family dwellings. To the south are also TF3, but they are developed with duplexes. To the east is TF3, which is vacant and also has a single family dwelling. And then to the west is B residential, which is developed with an outbuilding for a single family dwelling, so a garage or a shed. In 1886, this was platted as part of the Oliver subdivision of the I'm new to Wichita, Chautauqua. Is that it? Addition? With no other zoning cases associated with this property. The properties have access to East First Street North and North Poplar Avenue, with East First Street North, one-way, one-lane arterial street with sidewalks on each side. North Poplar Avenue is a two-way local street with sidewalks on each side. Municipal services serve the subject properties, and Wichita Transit provides services at the southeast corner of East Douglas Avenue and South Green Street, which is approximately 1/4 mile southeast. If you scroll down to the future growth map, the requested zone change is in conformance with the community investments plan, which recommends the subject site for their residential uses. Adding multifamily development would increase the diversity of residential types and densities in the area, adhering to the plan. There's also in conformance with the places for people plan. The plan calls for infill and redevelopment contextual to the environment. And it is in conformance with the Central Northeast Area Plan. Again, initiative 8.1 calls for new home construction on vacant lots. Go to the pictures. Briefly, you're looking inside into the interior of the site, then to the west, then to the east away, then from the north away. And I can say that that we have received no public comments on this application, and based upon the information available, the staff report is prepared. It is recommended the request be approved. This recommendation is based on comments, and I can stand for questions. Questions for staff?
Could you tell me what the BZA, what that stands for?
Sure.
I know like the conditional.
Sure. So at some point, the properties that have BZA, if you go to the zoning map, right there, you'll see some properties that have BZA on them. What that means is that they, the owners of those properties have asked for a variance of some sort in the past.
Okay.
That the Board of Zoning Adjustments would have either approved or denied. I don't know what those cases would have been at that time, so.
Like a garage or knocking something down.
Maybe it's encroaching into the setbacks more than 20%, or maybe allowing for a higher building height, or anything along that. You know, reducing the parking. So there's all kinds of variants that can occur.
And then assuming they didn't provide any site plans either for the.
Correct. For zoning applications, there are no site plans that are required. They are required for some
land use, applications, but not for zone change.
So I have a question, I'm a little confused, but you said one of the buildings has already been torn down. Okay, yeah, okay, good.
Side.
Okay, so now I'm better oriented. I didn't see a sign there today, and maybe the time for a sign, I don't know how long it has to be up, but I didn't.
Yeah, it should be out until the MAPC meeting has been concluded, so there's always a chance they get blown away, somebody steals, I mean, that happens all the time.
So the single family stays there.
The single family is supposed to remain,
Okay.
and then they'll build the duplex on the vacant lot.
Any other questions? None.
I thought this says to construct a duplex and single family residence.
Yeah, it may be a little bit misleading. It's actually I actually had to talk to the planner who is actually representing this case. Because I was confused as well. The single family dwelling is remaining. They're not constructing. They are only constructing the duplex.
So it said that technically they could have up to 4 based off of this, but they're only planning on doing a duplex. Would it be beneficial, like as a group, for us to do an overlay, like say they have to stay with a duplex due to the parking? Right?
I don't know that you can do that.
You can't do an overlay.
I mean, they are meeting the requirements, so there's nothing that says.
You can't do 4.
Yeah, so they are having 3 dwelling units instead of the allowed, there would be 4. And so, so they're not really looking to add a 4th one. If they were, then they would have to meet those parking requirements as well, or they could ask for a variance for reduced parking as well. One of those BZA questions. But right now, they're just looking at keeping that single family dwelling and building the duplex, which would provide for 3, which would meet the requirements of density. Would be a little bit below.
But if you wanted to send that message to the council.
Have another question. This time I can ask it with confidence. Is it an in-state owner?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
Live in state,
okay. Oh, and you're the owner?
yes.
Are there any questions for the owner?
Yeah. So owner, we can take you at your word. It's gonna just be a duplex, not the 4.
No, well, I bought that property, I bought it to move my grandmother in that property, so I remodeled that little small house on there, like brand new, just kind of custom made her a little house. She's single. So anyway, I built that place and I was gonna just leave her by herself there, but then I had this big haunted house right there in front of her, so I bulldozed it down. And then she said, well, why don't you build a duplex? I said, it's not gonna bother you? I said, no. She said, no, so I just said, okay, so that's what we're doing. And I do have I don't have the plans, but I do have of what it's gonna look like.
That'd be great.
I'd like to see it.
Yes, yeah. One of the things that I worry about is just some of the designs today. That's why the Places for People is so great, and I wish they would require it. But it's, there's no windows on the front facade. It's just, a garage kind of a thing. And there's not a lot of character. Oh, that's really cute. Yeah, and I'm all for like diversity in architecture, like within a neighborhood. When it's just a box, with no front porch, no windows, that's not really community.
It's almost identical.
Okay. It's not just all garage first. So
Right.
we don't like.
Just straight out of the garage, nice brick. I wanna light it. I grew up Yeah, my mom lives at 332 South Poplar. My sister owns 121 North Poplar. She used to own 242 Poplar. I used to own 2412 East First, which is right across the street. This is just my home,
Yeah.
I went to Robinson Junior High School. We used to walk these streets as a kid, so this is kind of home for me,
Yeah.
I've lived all over Washington, Virginia, Texas, but this is just home. So, if I'm gonna develop some place and make it nice and do, it's like my block, you know?
Yeah, no, yeah. Absolutely.
Like a
Yes, we
TV
would
show.
appreciate, I worry about people who do the opposite.
So in the last, since 2018, I've done 811 South Spruce, 502 South Green, 2412 East First, and now this one. And I've just me and one guy, we do everything, all the remodeling, the painting, everything. So yes, it's been
I
fun.
need to get out there too.
Isn't it?
So all of these that you've developed, are they all used as rentals?
No, I did like she was talking about, I bought the homes. I own a commercial cleaning company called ICT Building Maintenance. So I just got bored during the daytime. We work at night, all my ladies clean buildings at night. We clean Ameritrust Bank, YMCAs, YGN, have a lot of big accounts. So I got bored during the daytime, so I bought a house for $3,500 and it was my mom's house, 502 South Green, and I rebuilt it. And my mom was like, "This is your niche, you need to do this." She says, "This is perfect." You guys can look at it. I got some pictures, but so I just started doing one at a time during the day. Keeps me busy.
Any other questions? Any questions, input from the public? Okay.
That's not the one with that great pear tree.
Save the pear tree.
Pear tree?
Pear tree on First, yeah. It's on east end of that, there's a pear tree. Did I harvest every?
I don't think that's a pear tree. There's no pear tree where the duplex is going, I promise. It's fine.
Okay.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve, the conditions that you keep the pear tree. But yes, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion has been made, seconded by 3 people. All right, there's no further discussion. All in favor of said motion to approve, respond by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Definitely thank you for being here. Not everybody shows up, so we appreciate it.
I say it's my block.
And for passion.
Yeah.
Well, and if you live there, come back to more dad meetings.
What'd you say?
I said, come to more dad meetings.
I will. This is my first time ever doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just listening, learning a lot about the city.
To get there.
It's almost like you feel involved. It's like, you know, after this meeting, I feel like more connected to my city.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. Bring
Well,
friends,
anytime.
bring friends.
All right, we will jump to item number 13. Metropolitan Area Planning Department zoning letter notification process.
Oh, no, you still need to take one and have it or.
Good evening, this is Anita from the Planning Division. And I'm going to be presenting a review of potential changes to the public zoning notification letter process. So this would be an opportunity for you to provide any feedback on the information that I provide today and ask any questions, and you're not required for any voting today. This presentation will provide a review of zoning case notification practices and policies related to potential expansion of notification distance, providing public notification letters to non-owner occupants in addition to the property owners, inclusion of languages other than English, and providing public notification letters that are easy to understand. This is an overview of the topics that I'll go over in today's presentation. The interest and the review process, the current practice within City of Wichita, and then I would also review the 4 topics I just mentioned. The interest and the review process. There has been an interest expressed to look at the public notification related to the zoning cases. And firstly, I'll go over what are the sequence of the events. On July 19th, 2022, during the city council meeting, a council member indicated a desire to have public notification distance for zoning cases to be reviewed. Then we had walk-ins and other public hearing meetings where the public has come and asked for why we didn't get the notification letter. So, and also there has been discussion on several district advisory boards on the notification process that we are having. Planning staff have responded to the public interest by exploring the topic with the MAPC Advanced Plan Committee. So we have been to all these advanced plan committees and have done our research all along and presented our reports to them. The information being presented today was largely developed for those MAPC meetings that was there in 2022 through 2023. Staff also conducted a presentation at July 25th, 2023, Wichita City Council workshop meeting. The presentation illustrated the costs associated with potentially expanding the notification area and also the number of individuals receiving the notification. Members of the City Council indicated a desire to expand the existing notification and explore the notifications in other languages, especially Spanish and Vietnamese. If you're interested, the videos and the notes of all these meetings are available online on our website. For the month of February, the planning department would be giving presentations to the DAPs to gather more feedback on the topic. As today we do have 4 presentations at the 4 DAPs here, and we'll be doing that all through the month. And let's get to the current practice that we have. You are all very familiar with the zoning process. The focus of this discussion is on how people are notified so that they can participate in this process. There are a variety of ways that the people can receive the notifications about zoning cases. Some of those are required and others are not. For an example, the MAPC public notice published in the newspapers is required by a state statute and the Unified Zoning Code. But an email is not a policy, but it's a courtesy of the MAPD department. We'll talk more about each of these on the following next few slides, but this is just a brief overview. The published notice. A legally published notice to notify about the Planning Commission meetings and cases on the agenda is required by the state statute. It has to be done at least 20 days prior to the public meeting. If this is missed or doesn't allow the 20-day notice, then the case needs to be re-advertised. Then there are 2 types of emails that's been sent out of courtesy, and they are distributed by the planning department to public regarding the cases. One of them is the constant contact distribution list, and the other is the case-specific notifications to individuals who have provided their email addresses to us.
I have a question. Provided their email addresses to you and where, when?
So for an example, a zoning case comes in the application, if they indicate their email addresses, we would contact them with the notification, apart from the legal notice that goes out through the mail. You would also email them out of this.
So those are attached to the application.
Usually if they provide the email addresses, we would do that. They are not required to provide their email addresses. This is an example of the yard notification sign. MAPC policy requires the applicant to put up such notification signs on their property at least 13 days prior to the hearing. Enforcement is up to the Planning Commission for these yard signs. There isn't penalty or specific consequences of not having these signs displayed. Probably a likely scenario would be for the Planning Commission to defer the case in order to allow additional time for posting of the sign and general public awareness of the case. The notification letter required by the state statute. The state establishes a minimum distance. For the city, the minimum distance is 200 feet radius around the application site. And for the county, it's 1,000 feet radius around the application site. In some instances, the city of Wichita goes beyond those distances depending on the site, depending on the size of the site. So this is an example of the existing notification distances that the city of Wichita practices. For an example, up to a property which is 1 acre in size, it would notify the properties 200 within the radius of 200 feet. If it's more than 25 acres of size, it would go over to 1,000 feet of radius around the application site. So now let's go on to who receives the notification letters. The notification letters are sent out to the property owners as required by the state statute. As per courtesy, the city also sends out notification letter to the registered HOAs and registered neighborhood associations who have their email addresses with us. The MAPD application form requires the applicant to purchase a certified ownership list from a title company. It is important to note that the notification area is always not the same as the protest area. The state establishes the protest area in cities as 200 feet, which potentially can change the city council vote requirements. This is an example of where the protest area, which is in green, it's 200 feet around the application site, but the notification area is about 1,000 feet. So both of them are different. So let's get on to the mail notification distance. So when the MAPC Advanced Plan Committee was discussing the public notification, there were two general areas that were focused on: distance and recipients. The first thing we did was to look at what other cities in Kansas are doing. You can see that all of them except Lawrence match the state minimum of mailing notices, which is 200 feet for the state. The next step was to look at the cities outside the state of Kansas and what they do. For an example, Kansas City, Missouri is 300 feet. And Tulsa, Oklahoma is 300 feet with minimum of 15 property owners to be notified. Here's a table with additional languages that are being provided in the requirements for the other cities.
Lawrence was the only city in Kansas that had additional, right? Do you know when that was established? Has that been, or was that recent change, or do you know any history of that at all?
We know that's the current practice of Lawrence, but I'll have to find out more about what's in the history. I'm sorry.
And then just for the folks here, it's hard for me to envision feet. I envision yards. So 200 feet is only 66 yards. It's not that far when you think about it.
So I'll have a few exhibits of how it looks like on the map.
Yeah, they're probably.
So this is again the currently used notification distances as per the size of the properties. So as you can see, it ranges from 200 feet around the application site to about 1,000 feet around the application site. The table lays out two potential options for expanding the notification distance. First, to expand the radius by 2.5 times of the existing notification distances, which will increase the minimum notification distance to 500 feet and maximum to 2,250 feet. The second option, which is the option B, is to increase the minimum notification distance to be 500. Note that other options coming out of discussions may also be considered. The possible options for notification distances are that no changes, to the current or existing practice, or decreasing the distance, but not lesser than 200 feet, which is required by the state statute, or expand the distance. As I was talking about the exhibits that we have, so we have 3 exhibits, and these are the sample neighborhoods with different kind of densities of houses, like how many houses you can notify within 1,000 feet or 200 feet. So over here, we have the orange in the middle, which is the 200 feet, which is the minimum area to be notified as required by the state statute. Then we have green, which is the 500 feet, and the purple as 1,000 feet. So this is a part of the Riverside, which is the most dense. So we'll notify a lot of houses and a lot of ownerships with this. Then there's the Meridian. It's the same radius of 1,000 feet, 500 feet and 200 feet, but we can see there are a lot lesser number of property owners that are being notified over here. And this is an exhibit of a lesser dense area near the Woodlawn, but the same radius.
What's the cross street, Woodlawn and?
This is a 21st.
Looks like Central.
It looks like Central looks out to me.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's Normandy. I just sort of like Woodlawn. Okay.
Now, let's look at the additional costs that are potentially going to be incurred if we decide on expanding the notification. The applicant would incur about $18 or $18 for additional property to be notified. The planning department would incur $2.64 per additional mail notification. That includes the labor, the postage, the paper, and more staff time. So this is a calculation we did for the 3 sample exhibits that we showed you. So depending on the number of ownership that we send the notification to, the costing would change. But the applicant cost per address is $18, and MAPD costs per address is $2.6. So I would like to pause here and open the floor for discussion, questions, or any feedbacks on this.
Well, you just said it's, the applicant cost is
$2.64.
Okay.
Applicant cost per address is $18.
Yeah, how did you, I mean, that seems high.
Yes, I mean, we are required to buy the ownership list from a title company, and the most frequently used title company is the Security First, and we've got the costing from them.
So that's the cost, it would,
For,
to get the list and then to notify.
yes, this would be the additional cost apart.
Per address, right,
Could a different title company, would they give a better price?
We do not suggest for any, because that's not being done by us, it's done by private title companies, so we do not suggest.
And that's the most common. I'm interested with Lawrence being 400, and then outside other cities, I think 300 was pretty prevalent. I know we've had many conversations about 200 just not being enough, and the 500 did seem a bit more expansive than I really thought. So I would even maybe be comfortable entertaining 300 feet as like a minimum to gain a few more. I mean, I think that would be at least look like 10 to 15 more homes, and that would be less cost than the 500.
Yeah, and I think you're kind of hitting kind of a nice middle ground too, because a lot of these cases are going to be deep within neighborhoods.
Right.
But you are gonna get the occasional one that might be on more of like an end cap or a corridor, right? And it may be something for a business that maybe has a greater impact on the community. So I like the idea of expanding the area of the notification, just based on some of the feedback that we've had in the last few years. But I do feel like 500 feet might be a bit too much, just for your average typical applicant.
Yeah, I would say, I would agree with that. And then I would also make, I was gonna say, I would also make comment on the signage though. I know we've talked about the language on that, or if it could be bigger, the notification sign, the little red one. Cause I've just had feedback of people don't understand what that is, or that they could even call. I just don't know if that language or the verbiage on the sign where it says, what is it, the development applicant?
Right.
I just don't know if that translates to call to
Use
find out.
question. Yeah.
Call to find out what this is, like, I just think development application, it seems very formal, like that is for developers to call or something, you know,
Yeah.
something like that. So I don't know if that can be redesigned to be more user friendly of literally like call to find out what this is, or, you know, something.
You have to get out of your car, walk up.
Well,
to it,
bigger,
write it all down.
bigger and more user friendly.
Yeah.
Or you've gotta like slow down with your phone ready.
Snap it real fast and then go. Okay, that's my call.
So back to the actual, you know, when you send a letter. And so that, sending the letter, that is city policy, that you have to send a letter that says that.
That is state statute to send it.
So state statute. So the state statute would have to change to become a little more modern, right? Like a QR code and a postcard would be much less expensive.
Will come into the content and user friendliness for the letter in the later part of the discussion. Yes.
We can be more restrictive than state statute, we can't be less restrictive. So that would be more restrictive.
Did I hear you say that there's no consequences if they forget to put out the signs or?
Because it's enforcement by MAPC.
So this is the development application yard sign is not a requirement from the state statute or the Unified Zoning Code. That's a requirement by the MAPC. That's the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. So they are not penalized for it, but usually they would defer their case so that they can put up their sign with enough time in hand so that others or public can get aware about the case.
Well, it's not a policy. I mean, even if it's a policy, then internally there should be something that goes along with policy.
So it's a policy of the MAPC.
So for instance, what she was just mentioning about the site she just went to today, or today to view, and there is no sign out there. So that could potentially call MAPC, say there's not a development sign out there, and then they would address that, put one up, or potentially defer if it did not get put up. So
Yes.
it just would have to be, they would have to be notified some way, shape or form that the sign isn't out there.
Yes.
To know, to enforce the policy.
But people aren't gonna do that.
They're not gonna know.
Oh, but
Yeah,
how would you
there's no
know,
sign.
how would you know the sign is supposed to be there, it's not there?
Yeah.
And especially if you rent the house, right?
That's what DAB's
And
for.
it's
Usually we do send out the letters along with the development
Yeah.
sign, so that
Right.
letters are also being sent out.
To
as
the
a
owners.
requirement. Yes, to the owners.
right, and that's not necessarily people who are
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's true. And also, the question about the 500 feet, which we were considering. So we were considering the 500 feet because it came out in the city council report. About the 500
Was the
of
agreed upon.
notification.
Certain council member recommend.
I like that recommendation.
Much better than the 200 feet for sure.
Was there any feedback from developers when this was at city council? I mean, were they for, against, I mean, did they feel like 500 was too far?
So this was at the city council workshop
Oh,
and not at the city council hearing.
Okay.
Just,
Yeah.
so I'll get
I know,
back
that's why I was like.
to the slides presentation, if I may. So the mail notification recipients on who gets the letters. So currently, the city follows the state statute, which requires all property owners to be receiving the notification mail. As per our research, all the cities contacted have indicated that mailed notices are sent out exclusively to the property owners. The possible changes you may discuss today are to have no changes to the existing regulations, which is to send out to the exclusively to the property owners, or to increase the distribution by adding renters along with the property owners. Currently, the number of recipients within the notification area varies significantly, with a minimum of around 8 to more than 400 depending on the location of the site. The current existing cost of mailing is $18 per additional property and $2.64 per each notification. Mail notification is incurred by the planning department. With the increase of recipients, it would add $2 per property address and also another $2.64 for each mail additional notification for the department. This is the potential additional cost if we decide on expanding the number of recipients.
So that applicant, that additional $2 for the applicant, is that only if it's a rented property? Or it's gonna be $2 no matter what, even if it's all?
Any additional addresses it goes on to.
So if they pull like my property card, they're gonna see that I'm the owner and the occupant. So I would get one letter.
We do not have the renter's record with the city, so it may happen that if you reside on the property and you are also the owner, you may get 2 letters. So that's the calculation we did for the potential additional cost for notification of property addresses and owners. I'll stop here for any discussion on this topic.
I have two kind of questions or comments. I don't know which is which. Has there been, I know the title company is a private business, but has there been any conversation to have like a MOU or some sort of way to support the developers or the applicants in doing this? Like, is there some sort of an agreement or an arrangement that could help facilitate this expansion? Or is that kind of just like, it's a flat rate, like this is just how we do business? Or has that been explored at all, or could that be explored?
As far as I know, that's up to the applicant, and the applicant chooses whichever title company they want to, and they get the certified ownership list. Basically, doesn't usually get into that, but I'm not very sure if they do have an applicant or something like that. I'm not aware of that.
Well, that would be a suggestion or an encouragement to see if there is potential to work with the title companies potentially. I don't know what that would even look like, but you know, there might be if they're on a referred list or something, you know, maybe they knock off a couple because they're on this referred plan now they have or something. I don't know. But I would encourage that to be looked in. And then the price difference, or the price for additional, it's less than I was imagining. So I would think for the interest of the owner, obviously has a vested interest to know what development is occurring around their property. However, the renters or the occupant has an interest to know what is occurring in their vicinity. So I would say to add that additional effort and notification. And if that were to be added, how do they get the owners from the title company? How do they get an applicant or renter list?
So the list would include the occupant, and it would go to the addresses, which is within the notification distance, and also to the owner. So the owner, if he resides at a particular address, might get it.
Right, I see. Well, that could be an area to explore too, if there's not duplications for cost.
So I have a couple of questions. So the title company, so it's a title company that they purchased the land from, is that it? Or, you know, because you have title work when you buy some land, but then they can shop around title companies for the addresses. Does that? You can.
Yes,
do
they,
both, you think?
they can go around
Okay.
to whichever title company.
Just to get the address.
Yes.
Okay. And then you said tonight you're not asking for a vote. So, and then maybe you'll get to it, but then what the process is, and then if you'll get feedback from developers and so forth, and then you bring it back to the DAB. Okay. Perfect.
Good question. Well, I think I want to throw this out as much to my fellow DAB members. But legal notice publication has been around forever. But now the newspaper is not. It is really not ubiquitous anymore. And so I'm hoping that some of us are looking at ways, like you mentioned, a postcard but more we need maybe a website that everybody in the world can go to anytime, and these propositions are up there. Because that public notification in the Wichita Eagle is not being seen anymore by hundreds of thousands of people. Just, you know, somehow we need to be looking at other ways to meet our people because a lot of people are held responsible for not knowing what was in an official public notification.
So look at more relevant communication channel.
Thank you for the input. So I recently had a zoning request and I was in the notification area. And like, there were several things, several areas of improvement for me personally, even prior to like sitting on the board. I mean, there has been some things that have come up, you know, just with us. But so I remember the sign going up and I called. And so I reached out and it was very early on and I got very vague answers, right? You know, what is the change? What are the proposals? Well, they just want to go this to that. Well, what the heck does that mean? Same thing with the letter. You get the letter, it's just, we want to do, you know, TF3 to ABC, DEF, whatever. So you've got to then go and find in the statutes and hope that where you're looking at it is the correct place to even figure out what that means. So before you can, I mean, there's a lot of steps there before you even know if you want to care or not. So I reached out, I mean, honestly, because if it's just, somebody wants to put, an apartment over their, detached garage, I probably am not going to care. But if somebody wants to put in a loudspeaker or a nightclub next door to me, I'm going to care a heck of a lot more. And that's really vague. And there's not any direct link to what those changes could be other than you having to look it up on your own, which again is fallible. So I did reach out to my neighbors. It didn't cost $263 a letter, I don't think, but maybe I shot discount. So, but I did send a letter out to all of my neighbors and kind of explained what it meant, right? So if this is approved, this is the type of request that they're changing under the statute. It could be any of these things. I don't know what they're asking for necessarily, but I did reach out to the applicant. They sent me plans and I forwarded that to my neighbors as well and said, this is just what I know. And I did get a lot of feedback, even from people that I don't visit with a lot. And basically they were like, this is awesome. Like, I feel like, I'm going to come out in support of it, in support of this. I feel very educated and very informed. So I think if they're, and that's just me. I mean, I have a full-time job and I do other things too, and I just think that, if we are going to do things like this, that we should, one, be reaching everybody, and two, be a lot more intentional about the information that we're sharing. And it doesn't have to be hard. So even if it's just a link to a web page with this is what those changes mean, right? And then these are the dates where you can go and share your opinion and have public comment. If you can't make it for public comment, this is how else you go. And I mean, it could just be boilerplate. That it would be really helpful in getting some feedback in a lot of these areas.
Yeah. Just to let you know, at least I'm not very sure if it's 7 days or a week or 3 days earlier to the public hearing. The MAPD department publishes the agenda along with the staff report on their website. So you can go ahead and click on the link to read about the staff report of a specific case that you're interested in. Yeah, but then thank you for your.
But it's still hard to find.
Yeah, you still don't get a lot of information. Right.
Yeah, I'll
So-
just note down
yeah.
your inputs.
So basically
we can work on it.
have the mailer be, speak more to residents than department lingo, it sounds like. Less of that.
Layman.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in spending extra money if there's not more information.
No.
I'll get to the contents of the letter in a while. So if I may get on with the presentation. So the mailed notification languages. In July 2023, Wichita City Council workshop, a council member expressed his desire for public notification letters in Spanish and Vietnamese languages. But as per the city legal team, there are some legal concerns to it and is not currently advisable.
They list what the concerns are.
The concerns were mainly regarding equal protection and due process, but the legal team may want to expand a bit more what exactly it is, but then. Our research states that no other jurisdiction offers multiple languages in their letters.
Yeah.
That I'll pause for any questions you have in this section.
Well, so then, any sort of kind of medical thing, you probably get it, right? Anytime you get something from a health insurance company or whatever, they have that mandatory notification that's, and that has it in every language, how they can get the information you just got in the mail, but in their language, right? So, if the city doesn't want to send those in Vietnamese or Spanish, then can an attachment go like in Spanish and say, if you want this information in Spanish, this is how, yeah. Is that what you're
We are looking
anticipating?
we are looking into different options,
Okay.
but as per the legal team, the current options that we are looking into are not advisable or those changes are not advisable at this point. But we are definitely looking into feedbacks or recommendations that we can talk about.
Yeah, I'm confused. What's the liability in changing them and putting in a language that somebody can understand?
I can speak to that a little bit. I did mobile notary for a while. And I wound up getting all of the foreign language speakers for this notary company. And the reason was, you hear the way I talk, that's the way I listen. I could slow it down, but what I learned was technical terms. People don't understand the technical terms in English. The jargon for the system, they don't understand it if they were born and raised right here and that's all they know. But the legal obligation, if we admit we have a legal obligation for another language, we've got to find somebody business-wise, seriously fluent in that language. So it is a radical challenge. Not that it couldn't be met, but it is a radical challenge. It would be very wonderful if there was some sort of co-op at WSU among the foreign students, for example, who were willing to contact people that you could refer folks to or something. But I do understand that it's hard. And I'm very compassionate with people that don't speak my native language. And I can really slow down and I can start using simpler and simpler words in English till they can finally get it, you know. But sometimes I have to explain English words, you know. I mean, there are people that didn't know what does documentation mean. And for college educated people, it's, you know, what's wrong with you? But we're still in a society that is not 100% college educated people.
I like that recommendation of having a disclaimer of some sort that can circle people to a link or a website or email address to request in another language. I think that can help solve the legal problem. But
Google Translate is good for personal stuff. But you really can't get you can't
Yes.
get the business jargon, technical jargon, you just can't get it.
So how does the city of Wichita translate? Like if someone does call you and doesn't speak English, I mean, how do you accommodate?
We do have staff person who translates and who are experts in other languages, and we do translate on case by case basis, and yeah.
There's a,
But we do not send out letters or notifications. We are not required to do that, so that's what we're looking at.
from the healthcare field, there are these services, and you'd be surprised, it's not all that expensive. And it's many languages, very exotic languages, and you contract with them. And they have interpreters who specialize in medical jargon, right? And then you just call the phone, they connect you, and then the translator is translating between the foreign speaker and the physician. And so my guess is that kind of service isn't limited just to medical expertise. So perhaps if there's something in, but I guess we're not really even looking for something all that exotic. We're just looking for 2 languages. Yeah.
And also there is an associated cost with everything that we do, so.
Right.
Have to look into that as well. So any other questions? Or-
yeah, I think the more inclusive we can be, the better.
So the next one is the letter content. This topic also came up in the city council workshop as the Wichita City Council expressed its desire to for public notification letters to be easier to read and understand. And be more concise. So this is the existing letter that we have. It's about 4 pages long. And we do have informations which is more than the minimum informations required by the state statute. So we are looking into potential draft changes.
Yeah.
So we have reached out to other cities where their notification letters are as shorter as a 1-page notification to some other cities having much longer, much more detailed notification letters. So we are looking into draft changes to it. So you do have on your table a copy of those draft changes. They are not the final draft version, so we are still looking into different possibilities to the letter content. So any feedbacks or thoughts on the draft version?
I have a question on the phone number. Is that typically answered quickly?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
it
that's
is.
great.
So we do have a planner on duty every day on every shift. So even if we cannot get to the phone or email at that moment, we'll get back. Okay, so.
Yeah, I've called and left a message and they've called me back, and I have called before and been transferred quite a few times to find the planner that had that case. So it was a bit of a process, but I did get the information I needed.
So I would say for sure to add something in there on this letter that says, so, for example, it's the application number details, request to rezone property from single family 5 to TF3, 2-family duplex, but a link to something that says like what all else that means. So what all are we else giving license to? Because sometimes too, especially if you're talking about like light commercial or, limited whatever. I mean, it could be anything from a laundromat to a cell phone company to, welding, I don't know. So, I mean, there's a lot in there that you might want to know. So if you link to the actual verbiage, and then if you do have more information that's provided by the applicant at the time, even if it can be scanned and uploaded to a website and you can access that and say, okay, well, here's the site plans for this. You know, this is, you know, I'm okay with this, or no, I've got some questions, so I'm gonna make sure that I go to these meetings.
So you're saying link to more information
More
about the
information.
cases.
Absolutely, yes,
Well, what the zone change actually means.
needs, right.
I also wonder if, I mean, I know this has to be pretty formal and standard, like notice of public hearing, Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. I don't know if that signals what, you know, this document is. I mean, could there be something within the heading that change in your neighborhood? Like very common language terms to express that this is going to be something that they want to look into, because I mean, sometimes all the junk mail that I get, literally they try to make it look very formal, like it's so important, I need to open it, you know, and it's literally nothing. And I could see someone just think like, oh, this is probably, but like a change in your neighborhood is coming, or, you know, something that really signals, this is happening in your neighborhood.
Or just, will this impact you personally?
Right.
And then, wait, maybe I better check it out.
I know. So more in a base language.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe like more neighborhood friendly type of, I mean, this is very like departmental document. But I mean, you know, something about, yeah, this is a change in your neighborhood, like this is just a policy of MA, no, the
Maybe
yard sign is just a policy. This is actually state statute that they must do this notification, right?
yes.
Okay.
But the content is very minimum as required by the state statute.
Right.
The existing letter is much more detailed than the minimum required information in the state statute.
Gotcha. Okay.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Sure.
You know, the city has those signs, a new street or new surface coming on the side of the road. It's simple. On our public streets, the city puts a sign, it's new surface is coming. Something simple like that, but direct.
Yeah, I think even if like that, the development applicant, the
Oh,
new
the
development.
yard sign, right?
Yeah.
That would even be more
Or in the
pointed.
letter, and the yard sign.
Yeah, more pointed, I agree with that.
With that. Is there any other questions on this?
No other questions for me, but this is good to see this come back around, because I know we've talked about this for so long on the DAB, so it really is good that you all are responsive and doing this work, so thanks for that.
Would you mind, I'm sorry, go back to very early, the notification based on the size of the lot.
The distance, right?
Yeah, but even like if it's 25 acres or, you know, you had like, if it's less than an acre. Okay, so over 25 acres, 1,000 feet. So you're only gonna get your immediate neighbors.
If you're that big, yeah.
Yeah, or even 750 feet, almost every one of these. You're only gonna get your immediate neighbors. And is that the intent? Just those closest to you?
So we have, we have sometimes had people being notified, even if it's 1,000 feet, we have
Right.
had people come in and say, "Yeah, we are not interested in what's going on with that property,"
Right,
something
right.
like that, so.
Well, I think what you're getting at as well is how some of the cities and other states had, with the larger acres, had, or up to, or at least 15 owners. So if they didn't hit the 15 owners in that radius, they at
Yeah.
least had to go out to
To a
hit,
certain
Yeah.
number of
yeah.
people.
Because if you had, I mean, you can think of all sorts of what ifs. But you're out, you have your big property out in the country, and then somebody wants to put in, I don't know, is there such a thing as a rave barn? I don't know, right? But then only, only those 4 or 5 people around you are gonna know. And there's gonna be raving people driving all around.
That's why I did appreciate the minimum of 15 owners, so they would have to at least get 15 owners, well, that's the 300 feet or at least. I did appreciate that, some of that verbiage in there.
That having a minimum order number.
Yeah. Is efficient the distance.
What does Des Moines, Iowa, 250 feet to 300 feet cell tower?
That's for the 300 feet is specific to the cell tower application.
Say that
It's
again?
for a cell tower application that goes on.
Oh, for a cell tower, okay, thanks.
They must have some issues, so.
So if you have a,
No, go ahead, mine's.
so you have your 300 feet, right? And then you had your radius that the other people are notified. But if they object, it doesn't count, right?
No.
Right,
So the protest area calculation is done only around 200 feet. That's the state
Just
statute
notified,
requirement.
so they're informed.
so since legally they can't protest, but internally, do you guys take that into account or?
So that won't be reflected onto the city council voting, but anybody notified can come in at the MABC hearing, that's the plan commission hearing, and voice their comments on that case. But the protest petition won't be calculated for the city council voting.
So they could talk to a neighbor.
Is there any other questions?
I just had a question about the letter real quickly. Just looking at this on the second page where it says option to view remotely but not participate. What, if I got this in the mail and I'm reading through that and there's multiple meetings on here, what is that for? I mean, can you specify what I would be reviewing remotely? It's just confusing, so.
So I think previously till October or something, we had that option after COVID to participate virtually where you could comment or talk to the planning commission virtually, but then we did take out that option recently because of the planning commissions were not comfortable with having virtual
Right.
participation, but obviously they can listen and
Yeah, but my question is what am I viewing remotely? Cause there's multiple, is this for
Any
the?
of them.
Any of
Yeah.
This will link me to any meeting that's listed on here.
this is for
That'd be the first one.
the zoning notification letter that you receive right now.
Live stream, you'd have to go
this
at those times.
Right, okay,
Go
well, that's why I'm
online.
just asking, like, to specify what it's even, cause there's a couple meetings on the calendar, these
Yeah.
events, you're saying. Right, I'm just saying, like, if
It
Does
doesn't
somebody
specify
understand?
which meeting.
Right. I think that's really confusing if I get this in the mail and I'm like, well, what am I gonna be, cause they all have to viewing remotely. Which meeting is this? Is it the hearing? Is this? I don't know, I just think that could be specified a little, if there is a virtual. Right.
Access or
Or
to live stream or recording.
Right.
So if it was after the meeting, you don't wanna go check the recording. Yeah, that's confusing.
It is confusing.
Thank you for your.
Yes.
We got a comment on the new.
Yeah. Yes.
The Zoom comment said the current letter wording is also misleading as to who has the right to protest. It sounds as if only those with the 200 feet can speak against proposed zoning change.
They can submit, only the owners within 200 feet only can submit the protest petition, that's going to be calculated. But anybody within the notified area can come in for the MAPC hearings, or they can send emails to us while the review process is going on for any of the comments they have on any zoning cases.
I think it's a good note to say that it is confusing.
If that is who I think it is, the challenge was one case where an applicant was developing something and around that applicant was all business, but it was within a neighborhood association and there was no residential within 200 feet. And when they read the letter, nobody protested because it sounded like it didn't matter. But even though we as a council will see who protested and we may take that into consideration, none of them did because the letter. Or if that's what I think.
It's iPhone 8.
Yeah, that's it.
So with that, I'll move on to the next presentation, if I may.
Yep. Item number 14, Unified Zoning Code, Large Scale Utility Solar System.
So Monica Kundu again, Associate Planner with the Planning Division. And I will be presenting this presentation and updating you on the proposed changes to the Unified Zoning Code pertaining to the large-scale utility solar projects. Again, it would be an opportunity for you to review the information and provide any feedback or ask any questions. You are not required to enter. Just a quick disclaimer, we currently do not have any applications and are not considering any specific application as a part of this process. This is a review process of the solar regulations in general. Also, it is important to note that the process is related to utility or commercial scale solar that are standalone projects, not accessory uses where solar is a part of a larger development. For an example, the Mays High School having solar installations on them, or the solar at the Sedgwick County. So we are not considering those where they are accessory to a principal use. This is an overview of the presentation. So I'll give you a status update and talk about the process, the public input we have got so far, and the themes that came out of the public input, and an update on the meetings the staff has attended and the feedback they have got. It's going to go on to the existing conditions and regulations pertaining to the large-scale utilities. As you all know, the City of Wichita and Sedgwick County share a unified zoning code and a comprehensive plan. Both of them refers to specific regulations for solar under renewable energy systems. Unified zoning code, the Unified Zoning Code specifies the solar energy conversion system as a conditional use and requires the applicant to submit 20 supplemental informations, including something like a glare analysis or height of the structure, etc. The review process includes hearing at city advisory boards, planning commission, county commissions, etc. And in the process, additional conditions on a case-by-case basis can be added on. Comprehensive plan also provides some general guidance about solar energy conversion system, like selecting appropriate locations, the need for established designs and performance standards. And it also talks about protecting the viability of the existing cities and their future growth. But just to let you know, the comprehensive plan is more generalized and more broader in its language than the Unified Zoning Code, which is actually the language the applicant, whoever is the potential applicant for any solar large-scale utility solar projects will be applying to, will be referring to the Unified Zoning Code rather than the comprehensive plan. Let's talk about the current status. So here's the whole process that we have been following. And right now, we are here in the process where we are gathering as many feedbacks as we can from the DABs and the CABs. Throughout the month of February, the staff will be presenting this in different DABs and CABs and gathering information, feedbacks, and answering questions if they have any. Here's the schedule of the meetings. Tomorrow, staff will be presenting at the Board of County Commissioners. On February 8th, the final draft regulations will be presented at the Advanced Plan Committee. February 22nd is when the MAPC votes on it, and on March 20th, the moratorium expires.
So, we're talking about large scale, which is commercial. So is there any schedule or has there been, I don't see, with the business community to get feedback or?
So we have had different public inputs, so we'll consider that within the public input and I'll come to that section later in the presentation.
This is just the city board or
Yes,
city?
yes.
So this happens, I guess, in other cities, commercial groups wanna come in, put in solar farms, and then sell the electricity, back to Evergy, or would it be somebody like Evergy who wants to come in and do this? Who's requesting this at cities?
So this is not considering any applications, so
Right,
this is
I
the general
understand that.
regulation,
Yeah.
but
in general,
in
like
general,
in
this
other
question
communities,
came
who
up
does it?
because a particular application was potentially coming into the department,
I
but
see.
there is no application as of yet, and as a part of the process, we are not considering any application
Right,
in particular. It's a general.
right. I understand that, but in
Regulation.
other communities, like, how does this work in other communities who've allowed this and these folks come in?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Here are the staff reports that have been prepared for all through the process. They are pretty comprehensive. It includes the report on the solar town hall, which we had on November 16, 2023, an online solar survey report, solar best practices report, and solar public input report. So I'll come to each one of them in my next slides. So staff has done an extensive research on the solar best practices by looking into the available academic literature and also reaching out to other communities throughout the country and the state to know what their practices are for the large scale solar projects. Public input has been a very significant driving factor in this whole process. We had an online survey released in mid-November. Also, that had been, I think it was live from November 16th through November 28th, and we have received considerable amount of feedback through that. Also in November, on November 16th, there was a town hall meeting, which was very well attended, and we also got a lot of feedback through that. We have received considerable numbers of emails, in-person comments, as well as letters. So there has been more than 100 letters and emails, and all comments have been compiled into a public input report. And all these reports, the solar town hall report, the public input report, and the best practices report, all are available on our website. All the reports are available on our website for your review. All the informations from the public input have been boiled down to these specific themes: urban development and growth, decommissioning, groundwater contamination or water quality, and setbacks. In mid-December, we took these to the Advanced Plan Committee, which decided on 4 themes to have additional research and discussions on. And again, they are urban development and growth, decommissioning, groundwater contamination, water quality, setbacks, size and configurations of the large-scale projects.
On the emails, you had 100 plus emails, but you said you had considerable amounts in those surveys. Do you have a number on that?
I think around 100, I'm not very sure, but around 100. The town hall meeting was attended by more than 70 people. We had 70 people sign in the sheet, but we had more attendees in the town hall meeting, so it was more than that. So we have had considerable amount of feedbacks from all these resources.
Oh, and so the ones at the town hall are who took the survey.
So we didn't know who was taking the particular online survey. They can take online survey even if they are attending the town hall meeting. They were live after the town hall meetings. So this far, we have taken all these 4 themes and looked at our existing code and comp plan guidance, considered the public input and researched the best practices and what other communities are doing, and we explored our potential options. Again, just to reiterate, we are looking into possible changes to both Unified Zoning Code and Comprehensive Plan. Unified Zoning Code is the specific language any applicant would be referring to when submitting an application for a potential large-scale utility solar project. And Comprehensive Plan looks into the long-range plan that takes us to 2035. So any potential changes coming out of the Comprehensive Plan would be general in nature compared to the direct language in the Unified Zoning Code. So let's get on to the themes one by one. Decommissioning. These are the recommendations that came out of our late December and January Advanced Plan Committee meetings. The recommendations for decommissioning include removal of solar equipment should be at a depth specified by ordinance 3 to 4 feet.
What does that mean?
So
when I think of solar equipment, I think of above ground. And so removing
3 to 4 feet below where the solar equipment is. It's not for the whole property, but where the specific solar equipment is, to remove 3 to 4 feet from
soil.
Yes.
Because of that soil has potentially been contaminated. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Financial assurance shall be provided by owner or operator in the form of a surety bond or letter of credit. Plan shall indicate the length of time needed to complete decommissioning. Applicant shall provide a statement that owner or operator will notify the city or county in advance of decommissioning. Just to let you know, I have passed out the draft of the regulations that's there till now, the draft that we have come to till now. And it will be presented, the final draft will be presented at the Advanced Plan Committee on February 8th. For the comp plan regulations, majority consensus was to not have any recommended changes on this issue. The next theme is groundwater and contamination. The Advanced Plan Committee recommended these 2 items to be added to the Unified Zoning Code. They are as follows: requiring pre-construction, periodic, and post-construction soil and groundwater testing within 90 days of substantial removal of any portion of the system. Zoning application to include list of construction materials to be reviewed by the Director of Sedgwick County Environmental Resources and HHW for recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. And then again, there has been a majority consensus to have no recommended changes to the comprehensive plan for groundwater contamination and water quality. The next theme is urban development and growth. So this is a map for 2035 urban growth areas. The darker colors depict the city limits and lighter colors are the urban growth areas of the cities. So if you ask what is an urban growth area, it depicts the anticipated long-term growth patterns for the cities of Sedgwick County. These are not binding in nature, but serve as reasonable indication as to where the future extension can be in terms of public infrastructure, services, and corporate limits by 2035. So any of the potential application received within these urban area of influence will go through the following process. The respective city planning's commission will be notified by the MAPD, or they can come to us as well if they get any application. They can review and provide recommendations to the MAPC. MAPC would then hear the case with the small cities recommendation. And next, as it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, if the small city recommendation is in denial, then 4 of 5 Board of County Commissioners votes are required for approval. So this is the current process in practice. Note that cities can provide their comments throughout the process in terms of letters, resolutions, or verbal testimonies, and others. There was a discussion in the public input part that we have got. There was a discussion about a ban on solar projects within 3 to 5 miles of the urban growth areas. So we tried to look into that, and this map was provided by Inevergy, which indicates the pink areas as the 3-mile buffer around the urban growth area, urban growth boundaries, and the white is the place potentially, if there's a ban, the white is the place where they can have the large-scale utility solar projects, and pink is the area potentially, if there's a ban, there would be a ban on it.
And what's the yellow?
That's City of Wichita.
So
And the
there's no
pink
ban.
is for the others incorporated cities within the Sedgwick County.
So basically, there would be a ban around the white is where.
Potentially.
Potentially, if, right. So not within the city limits.
Including the city limits, like along, beyond those boundaries, they'll be able to have that. There was also a discussion and a request at the at the Advanced Plan Committee meeting to take a look at the 1-mile buffer around the urban growth area boundary. And we looked into that as well. This map is provided by MAPD. Again, the pink shows the 1-mile buffer around the cities of urban area influence. But after the discussions, the majority consensus was to make no changes to the existing process. And the contributing factor for that decision came in as the committee was comfortable with the existing process, as the conditional use process provides enough flexibility that a city could indicate whether or not large-scale utility would be a good fit for that city or not. Plenty of opportunities are there throughout the application process for the cities to provide input. So they came to the consensus of not having any changes done in terms of urban development and growth. There was a majority consensus for no changes in the comp plan as well. The next theme would be the size and configuration. So there are several parts to this theme, so I'll get to them one by one. The first is the setbacks. There was a majority consensus of not having any changes to the existing practice. This was because of the contributing factors that additional conditions may be imposed on a case-by-case basis using the existing conditional use permit. A majority consensus was to have no changes recommended to the comp plan as well. Next is the size limit. The majority consensus was to have no size limit for this large-scale solar utility projects. Again, owing to the opportunity that we have of imposing a conditional use permit on a case-by-case basis. The comp plan as well, there are no changes recommended as per the majority consensus at the Advanced Plan Committee meetings. The next one is the height. According to the best practices, the ground-mounted solar energy systems typically do not need more than 20 feet above ground at the maximum tilt. So the Advanced Plan Committee recommended to add in the following language in the Unified Zoning Code regarding height. And it says limit height of solar panels to 25 feet with the ability for it to be increased during the conditional use process. The contributing factors to this consensus was that the height of 25 feet is based on the best practices research and information collected from the other counties. ability to potentially increase the height of the solar panels through the conditional use permits. There was a majority consensus of not to have any changes recommended for the comp plan regarding the height. Additional topics were discussed at the advanced plan committee meetings as well, including whether to categorize the solar energy conversion systems into small and large projects, and as well as fire protection or fire safety, especially the battery storage. So MAPD talked to the Sedgwick County Fire Marshal regarding this fire safety topic, and it came out of that discussion that a review is required by the fire chief of the county or the city concerned for the application. Staff attended the Sedgwick County Association of Cities meeting on January 20th, which was very well attended, and the comments received from there has also been reported in the public section. The next step in this moratorium is to have the final draft of the regulations being voted by the MAPC Advanced Plan Committee on February 8th and get the MAPC to vote on the final draft on February 22nd, and the moratorium ends on March 20th. And these are the dates for the schedule that we are following right now. Any questions?
First of all, this is impressive. I like that you guys it feels like you thought of everything, so that's terrific. Under the decommissioning and the financial assurance in the form of a surety bond, so even if the company goes under, then you would have recourse, or the city would have recourse to the bonding company, right? Then for removal. Because I remember in the old oil days, like they would go out of business and then just left all the stuff out. Right, and then it took a lot of, I lived in Oklahoma, it took a lot of money to clean up these oil patches. So I just want to make sure that even if the company goes out of business, that there's money.
So that's why we are requiring them to have.
So the bond, so even if they're out of business, the bond company would take care.
I am not very sure of the legalities into it, but I'm guessing that's why we have.
Okay. And then groundwater and contamination within 90 days of substantial removal. Would it be prudent then to also add testing at complete removal? Because that, if you had a bad actor, they could take out the stuff that's not going to create pollution. It's the bigger components.
I think that would be a question for the director of Sedgwick County Environmental Resources. So we'll refer those questions to her in the cases, because she has been looking into the groundwater contamination and water quality, and she'll be reviewing the application on case by case basis. So that I can come back, I can email the questions on how it's done. Just don't tell me a question. Thank you for the question, actually.
So this process was spurred because somebody did want to do an application, but the city is basically just not prepared for that yet.
The count.
Count.
Any other questions, comments? Any from the public? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I waited to the end of that presentation, so there are only two DABs that get that, District 1 and District 3. I had the opportunity to sit through this presentation and thought it'd be good for you all to hear it. You probably won't ever see an application because a lot of this is focused in the county area, but I figured it'd be good for you to hear it just in case. So DAB 1 heard it, DAB 3 will hear it. With that, I appreciate everyone's time tonight. You all gave a lot of great feedback to our team on a lot of different issues. Don't forget our next DAB meeting is coming up next month. Looks like it will be before we go to DC, so we'll have a good time next month. And with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made. Man, it's unenthusiastic. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, stand up.